ran an Infinity, and then that Infinity was like involved in a murder. They got hit with a RICO charge, right? So I was looking into this case. RICO, I think it came about in the 80s to combat the mafia. In that scenario, all right, RICO seems a bit more just than it does going after Young Thug because his fucking like Uber driver like did something shady.
This is a whole nother argument that's happening, I believe, in different states now, where they're trying to say you can't use rap lyrics in court.
All right, I'll give you the breakdown. How probative, and let's look at a song lyric where he's like, I shoot that boy, I shot that boy, I keep that thing on me. How much does that tend to prove whether Young Thug actually committed a shooting versus Europe energy crisis? Did you hear what's happening in France?
No.
They're nationalizing their power companies.
All right.
Socialism in France.
You
about
have
to
my
fucking happen. All right,
Coke.
Dorey, are you putting dry snitching allegations on Fetty Wap right now?
What's cooking, everybody? I am joined in the bunker today by my friend Kevin Gallagher, aka the Miami Lawyer. Gallagher rolled through to break down everything on the Young Thug case, which, if you don't know, is a 56-count RICO indictment against the rapper and other alleged associates in Georgia that seems quite suspect, so we got deep into that. We also talked about the end of the Fetty Wap case, which now has a conclusion on Fetty Wap's end at least. Talked a bit about Henry Ruggs. Got into a company that was in the middle of the fentanyl crisis as well, and the case that was brought against them. And finally, also talked about China, because Gallagher is one of my go-to China guys. So, a lot in this episode. Love having the homie through, and I hope you guys enjoy. If you are on YouTube right now, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button on the video, and I would love to hear from you guys down in the comment section as well. To everyone who's been sharing the episodes, thank you. Let's keep that rolling. To everyone who is on Apple or Spotify right now, thank you for checking out the show over there. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a 5-star review on either one of those platforms. That is a huge, huge help, and I really, really appreciate you guys checking out the show. Finally, if you have not gotten your 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover yet, what are you doing? The 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover comes in queen or king sizes. It goes right on top of your current mattress, and it is wired directly into 8 Sleep's proprietary app, which measures your sleep stages throughout the night to optimize your sleep around you. As I like to say, you'll sleep 6 hours and feel like you slept 8. So if you use that link in my description, along with the code TRENDIFIER at checkout, that's TRENDIFIER, you will get $150 off your own 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover today, and you will begin sleeping the best you ever have in your life. I promise you, you're going to love it. That said, you know what it is. I'm Julian Dorey. This is TRENDIFIER, and please welcome my friend, Kevin Gallagher. You know, I keep looking at all these cases coming up. I feel like the whole fucking government's going after all the greatest rappers. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of wild.
They put my boy Pooh in prison, free Pooh, absolutely innocent of all crimes that he did. I don't know why, you know, they
took
tried
a plea deal, but
right, but they pressured him into that. I think that he maintains his innocence.
He's on video in both cases.
Listen, that's neither here nor there. I think he maintains his innocence. That guy was in the wrong. That security guard shouldn't have been there.
Pooh Shiesty thinks he's innocent.
I'm pretty sure he thinks he's innocent.
Julian.
Either way, all right, we're gonna let that one go. But the one that I'm really looking at right now is the one that's actively ongoing, which is the whole Young Thug thing. So this one really surprised me because Young Thug, you know, I'm going to have you explain the case and the details here, but Young Thug is known as, within the industry, as a guy who is, in addition to be connected across different genres, he's somebody that puts people on. He's built not just his own platform as like an artist, but he's built a platform for other artists, extremely well liked. And this, you know, this whole thing that went down that you're going to explain, it was like, it's a shock to me, and I don't really know what to think of it. Yeah.
So first of all, to your point, where how he like brings people together, he is one of those like rare artists in hip hop that's kind of like, I don't want to say genre bending because I feel like that's an overused term, but he is in a sense, right? Because I mean, he has like weird songs where he'll sing a lot and he'll use like different melodies and all this stuff, and it's just like you certainly can't box him in. So that had a lot of broad appeal because a lot of people who just might like your typical, you know, just like, you know, spit 16 bars and then a hook like type rapper, like he was going off on his own thing and doing it creatively, but also still coming with the bars because at the end of the day, you got to have bars. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's true. That's true. But yeah, man. So him and Gunna got hit with a RICO charge.
Oh, Gunna too. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah. Gunna. Arguably, I'm more into Gunna, man. I love Gunna.
Gunna's great. Gunna's great.
I think he's super talented. But yeah, they got hit with a RICO charge, right? So I was looking into this case. RICO, I guess I can break. It's
Please, break it down for everyone.
Racketeering, influential, corrupt organizations. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the acronym is, but I think it came about in the 80s to it's a federal statute originally to combat the mafia, right?
G. Robert Blakey wrote it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was the 80s, right?
It was either the early 80s or late 70s. I know he was working on it in the 70s. Same difference. Exactly what you said is right.
Yeah. All right. So it was aimed with combating the mafia, because the problem with prosecuting the mafia was like, you know, all these guys have this criminal enterprise, and you know they're doing all these things to keep this criminal enterprise, but like you can't, you know, they're so separate. You have this hand doing this hand doing that it's like you can't, you know, really go after the beasts. You can only take down these like low level guys, and it was just hard.
Because a guy talks to a guy who orders another guy, and then it's done, and it's like they don't record this shit.
Exactly. So RICO tried to get to the heart of that, right? So in a RICO case, and this is a federal case, and there's the Young Thug and Gunna are actually charged with the RICO statute under Georgia. Georgia has their own state statute that's modeled after the federal statute.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that significant. I just wanted to clarify. I'm sure it's materially the same. Like, I'm sure it's pretty much the same.
There aren't a lot of states that have their own, right? That's
I think there are, actually.
Thing.
I think there are.
I'll have to look at that. I have no idea about that, but I didn't realize that. I thought this was, you know what? I knew it was a Georgia case, but in my head, for some reason, until this moment where you bring it up, I kept on thinking from like a federal standpoint because they were throwing around the word RICO.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's the same, right? Because it probably is, because states have laws are so much more similar than states than they are different. You can basically, I don't know anything about, you know, Tennessee law, but I can guess it's probably 95% the same as Florida law, the same as Pennsylvania law. Like people do things the same. But anyway, on a RICO charge, if you're being prosecuted for a RICO crime, basically the government wants to prove one, that you're part of this gang, and that one, that like this gang exists, and that you're a member of this gang. So
what are they accusing Young Thug though? He's the head of a gang.
YSL is a gang. I don't know what YSL.
All right, we'll get to that, but continue with the things.
I know Young Stoner Life. Maybe that's what it stands for. I don't know.
I'll clarify that. You can continue with the things that RICO.
All right. But yeah, basically, you want to you allege that someone's that there is this gang that exists, this criminal enterprise, and that the person you're charging is a member of this criminal enterprise. And when you have that, the way that RICO is written, basically, any act by any member of this gang or criminal enterprise that's in furtherance of this gang, any criminal act, any member of this gang can be charged with, basically. Right? So, like, think about it this way. It's kind of crazy. You and I, we get together and we say, yo, we're going to form this gang. We're going to do bad shit. We're going to do criminal shit. Me, Kevin and Julian, like, all right, we're going to, like, rob stores. We're going to do, like, whatever. We form it tonight. We shake hands. We form the gang. Then we're like, all right, peace. I'm going home. Whatever. See you. You're like, all right, I'm chilling at my house. Then I go and do some shit that I don't even talk to you about, that you don't know about, that you didn't explicitly agree to. So we just say we're going to form this criminal gang. We're going to do hood shit. But then I say, you know what? As I'm driving home, I'm like, I want to rob this liquor store. I'm doing it for the gang of Kevin and Julian. And I rob this liquor store, and I objectively am doing it for the gang. Then you can be charged with that.
How do they determine that, though?
I mean, it's hard to determine. I mean, you have to determine. So, like, we're talking about, like, state of mind and, like, circumstantial evidence and all that shit. So it's like, you know, it's not easy to determine. You can't read someone's mind, but, like, there are ways you can determine that.
Hypothetically, though, let's use that same example you did. If I, what was it, rob a grocery store, you said?
A liquor store.
A liquor store. Okay. So if I rob a liquor store and I'm doing it, they're trying to say you're doing it for the gang of Kevin and Julian.
Yeah.
If you rob it, as you said, you rob it, you then bring the bounty back to our pad.
Well, that's so
right?
that would be good
split it up.
circumstantial evidence. Yeah, that's. I
Okay.
mean, again, there's no. We could go through a million hypotheticals, but yeah, that would be something that would be good evidence, right? If I told you about it after the fact and you didn't reprimand me, if there's a bunch of stuff like that. So as far as the Young Thug case, one of the main things is there's this murder that took place in I think 2014 or 2015, where Young Thug rented a vehicle. He rented I think it was like an Infinity or something,
Yep,
and he's you don't know about this?
I know what you're talking
All
about.
right,
Yeah.
So
explain this.
All right, so I guess I'm getting it right. He rented an Infinity. He signed the contract, whatever, and that's some of the documents the prosecutors are using. And then that Infinity was involved in a murder, and they're trying to say. And then there's an informant that's saying that he Young Thug confessed about it.
How was it involved in a murder, like a getaway car or something?
Yeah, I think it was just they pulled up on someone and they got out and shot him, or they shot him from the vehicle, and then they pulled away, but it was involved in a murder.
Quick question in the middle of this.
Yeah.
Do you think that you know how the music industry works sometimes, okay?
Yeah.
These guys.
Well, not. I mean,
it depends what parts of it you're looking at or whatever. But within rap, it's a common theme that guys will make it out of the worst neighborhood, and props them for doing it. And they got a lot of friends. Maybe some of the friends aren't involved in great stuff, but those are their boys. They hang around the studio while they're recording and having fun. It's a part of the vibe. By the way, some of your favorite songs ever made, that's how it's getting made. Guys are sitting around the studio. There's 20 of them in there. They're friends since they were kids. Only one of them's the actual rapper, or two of them, whatever. And they make a song. Is the thing that my mind's been going to in this.
And
is
you would
that,
know because you chilled in the studio with Monty.
Yeah, great time, good guys.
That's swag.
But the thing my mind went to with this is that what if because the label is literally called one of his labels, I guess, is called YSL, Young Stoner Life, by the way, is when I checked what it stands for.
I thought it was. All right.
Because of that, then they try to say, then these gang members who he may have grown up with and know, they named a gang allegedly YSL and did all these things in the name of YSL, when in reality, he's sitting there at the studio putting on, and passing out bread to his boys or whatever, and then they're going out and doing whatever the fuck they do, and he doesn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's a good argument in defense of Young Thug, because I think you would just, I think that's exactly what you would say. You'd be like, look, he's a multi, platinum, I'm assuming he's multi-platinum musician. He's doing all this stuff. He just has people around him at all times, and he cannot be responsible or even know or has no has not formed any criminal enterprise with these people. He's just he came from an area where some people maybe don't have the best intentions at all times, and maybe comes from a different way of life, and maybe associates with these people, whatever, knows these people, maybe even hires some of these people, but it doesn't mean that he's some orchestrator or some member of some gang. And I think that's to me, I think that's going to play well in front of a jury. I think that the prosecutors they're super gung-ho right now. But I think you get a jury of your peers in front of you. This is Fulton County, Georgia, which is Atlanta. I think you get people in Atlanta, they're like, yeah, I don't think Young Thug is, some criminal mastermind. So that's my thoughts on that. I don't look. How does he have time to do any of this stuff too?
That's what I'm saying, bro. They're making him out to be. Now look, in fairness, if we're gonna be fair and balanced here, when they did this whole raid or whatever it was, same day where they went to all these guys' houses, including Young Thug, yeah, they found stuff in his house they shouldn't have. And he got charged with some of that, and he'll have. It's the kind of stuff where if that was the only charge, he'd probably work out some probation, community service, some sort of little record, whatever, and things would get under the rug. And it's not a good look, but all right, a rapper owning some guns that's not the first time I ever heard that one. But they just tack that on to everything else. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, you know, it's not completely implausible that he could be a part of said conspiracy. Like, I can't say it's impossible, but yeah, like why, even though he has power as a celebrity with a lot of money in the music business, why the fuck would some of these guys even put up with him allegedly taking these enormous cuts when clearly, you know, his mind's not even in the job half the time, at least. Like, some of it just doesn't add up to me.
It doesn't add up, man. Like, the whole thing with the rental car, like, I mean, you're a rapper, you have like an entourage, whatever. Like, you give the keys to whoever, you know, and they give them to whoever. And then, like, they were trying to say, like, they have his, like, cell phone data, excuse me.
Oh, really? I don't know about this.
I think I read something about, like, they were trying to, like, pinpoint his, like, cell phone location, with this particular murder. How many cell phones does Young Thug have? Seriously, like, I have one cell phone, but I'm not Young Thug. I'm not a rapper.
He probably
has a few cell phones, right? Do they have?
I would say maybe a few is excessive.
He probably gets a new cell phone every month. Honestly,
he's got a couple.
Right? So, like, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? And like, I just think it's all maybe if this evidence were, if I rented a car and then someone did a murder with it, then yeah, maybe it'd be like, why did someone murder someone with the car you just rented? And you know, it's going to be hard for me to explain that. But Young Thug, he's like traveling, touring, doing all this stuff. He's got like people hitting him up. He's got different cell phones, different cars. I don't know. I think it's pretty easy to defend from that avenue. Now, I haven't seen all the facts. I don't know, but and I don't even know how Gunna is tied up in this. There's not much about Gunna.
Yeah, there really isn't. Like, no one really knows anything. He just got arrested with it, and he's been attached to Young Thug's label.
Well, that's the whole thing.
Time.
Like, exactly. Like, if you can just prove, as I understand Rico, if you can just like prove or like you just allege that he's a member of this gang, then they're all liable for all the activities of every member that's in furtherance of this gang. Which is crazy. Rico's super broad. It's like crazy broad, and people don't realize how broad it is, and like how much power the like government yields when they come down on you with that Rico.
It's a very impressively put together legal maneuver, and I fully understand. Like, G. Robert Blakey is, I always forget if it's Blakey or Blakely. I hope I didn't get that wrong. But
I don't even know who that is.
You actually should know who that is.
Maybe I should.
You usually know who like everyone is in law, but that's a guy. I think he's a professor now at one of the, maybe Cornell, something like that. Damn. But
I'll look him up.
He wrote the wiretaps law too. Like, he's been around. But that dude, when he was writing that law, you know, it's hard for us to maybe remember. Well, not remember it. We weren't alive, but you know, this was in he was working on it in the 1970s when the Italian American Mafia had their grip on the entire fucking country. You know, they were everywhere, and they couldn't take these guys down because they couldn't get, as you were pointing out earlier, from the soldier to the boss. Everyone knew La Cosa Nostra existed. Everyone knew that Carlo Gambino and fucking Frank Costello, and before that, Lucky Luciano and Al Capone, like, these guys were clearly calling shots. They were part of a gang that came from another country, the same country, came here, did their thing, but they couldn't prove it in court. So they made it, and this is what allowed them in the late 70s, 80s, and early 90s, all the way from the Donnie Brasco raid, where he was undercover with the Bananos for a long time and almost became a made guy, and then all the way through John Gotti being found guilty in, I guess, like 92 or 93. This is what allowed all that to happen.
Sure.
Right? So in a way, it's clearly a brilliant maneuver for something that was absolutely a problem. And I'm not a lawyer. I haven't sat there and read the minutia of it. But I do wonder how much of it can then get stretched to other things that it wasn't created for.
Yeah.
That then, you know.
That's exactly what I was thinking. You think of Rico, and it was aimed for this La Cosa Nostra, right? So what did you have to do to be a member of this gang? You had to work your way up for years, like gain the trust of everyone in the families, and then you had to have this like formal ceremony where you like draw blood, and you're like you're in this thing of ours, whatever, till you die, whatever, and that's like a hard like entry point, right? And at that point, it's like you basically are agreeing to like, I'll do whatever for this family, and like whatever they do is on me. So like, in that scenario, I'm not saying I don't necessarily agree with Rico, but I'm just saying in that scenario, all right, Rico seems a bit more just than it does going after Young Thug because his fucking like Uber driver like did something shady. You know what I mean?
Hey guys, if you're enjoying this episode, please be sure to share it around on social media and with your friends. Sharing the show is the best possible way we can get this thing to grow. So thank you to every single one of you who have been doing that each week, and thank you to all of you who are going to do it now. Yeah, that sounded very, like when I heard that part, it sounded circumstantial. There's like all kinds of news, like if you look behind you, there's shit like this that's floating around that I can't even verify, like the whole got recorded on wiretap after police helped an inmate sneak a cell phone into jail. Like there were all kinds of entrapment things going on that sometimes, by the way, are because the cops the detectives have great evidence that this is happening, and then they just need to get the actual physical evidence like a wiretap. So sometimes it's perfectly fair. Other times it can paint a picture of somebody or force someone into a situation that looks sketchy. And like with wiretaps, I've cited this a bunch of times on the podcast, but like the judge in the Raj Rajaratnam case, after it was over, had a quote that's like pretty telling, where first of all, he should have never let those wiretaps stay in that case. That's a different story. But he was being asked about it in the media afterwards, and he said, yeah, it is a tough one, because he's like, especially when you're wiretapping someone for a long time, you get to go through thousands of hours of tapes. And it's very easy to find a quote, take it out of context, where you say, I'm coming over for dinner at my mom's house at 5 o'clock, and you sound guilty as fuck of something, right? Code word of something. And so I look at this one, and there seems to be, there's a wiretap element to it and everything, and it feels shotgun, because the other thing, and this part you're really going to have to help me with, but when you look through the actual like specifics of it, I'm looking at Vulture right now. So it says all 28 individuals named in the indictment were charged with conspiracy to violate the state RICO Act or by participating in a pattern of illegal activity to obtain money and property. The Georgia law, as you said, this is correct, Georgia law closely resembles its federal counterpart and was created with the aim of ensnaring large criminal organizations like the Mafia. Is the Mafia even in fucking Georgia? They're not even in Georgia. That's bullshit.
I'm sure they had their hand in Georgia.
They had two people in there at a fucking strip club hanging out. Anyway.
Taking bets.
According to the Times, this is not the first time Willis has sought RICO charges. No, there was a fuck. Oh, here it is. This is what I want. The 56-count indictment claims that YSL members were involved in murder, attempted murder, armed robbery, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, theft, drug dealing, carjacking, and witness intimidation. Notably, the indictment portrays Young Thug, as something of a mob boss. He is alleged to have committed multiple crimes that he is not being charged with, while Thug is not being charged for these quote-unquote overt acts, unquote, which include possession of methamphetamine with the intent to distribute and threatening to kill. He probably had an Adderall case and threatening to kill a man at a mall. They lend credence to the allegation that the collective was engaged in a criminal conspiracy. So that's very interesting. They are not charging him with the things that they are speaking about publicly and saying, this is why we're charging him with RICO. But they're charging other people with those specific crimes, and because those crimes happen, they're at the same time, without charging Young Thug, trying to say, but you're responsible for it.
Yes. I'm not sure if I understand what you just said. Say that one more time.
Yeah, that was convoluted. That wasn't a good explanation. So, publicly, they're saying Young Thug is this mob boss. He's the head of this whole conspiracy.
Sure.
The connotation is everything that happens probably came from him, therefore he's responsible for all of it. Just like when we see these mafia bosses go to prison for their whole life for murder, they never pulled the trigger. They ordered it, right? But in the charges, unlike in those cases where they charge those mafia guys with a full RICO act where I believe they make the language like murder and whatever. In this case, they're not, it says specifically, they're not charging Young Thug with any of that. They're just charging him with some of the counts on the actual RICO laws to say like, oh, he's just very, very involved. Therefore, instead of like some of the mob bosses who were looking at life in prison, he's not, but he's still looking at a serious case here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just took it as it's easier to build the case that he is part of this gang if you just like name all these. So like when you have like a criminal information or like indictment, whatever, you make like allegations, like you put like a numbered list of like Young Thug is alleged to have done this, like whatever. So I just took it as like they're just putting all this stuff on there just to kind of like paint the picture that he is involved with this YSL gang, and like it just further adds credence to that allegation without necessarily saying like, all right, like we're gonna mention that he did all this shit with the methamphetamines and like whatever, but we're not gonna like actually charge him with that. But like that's just gonna further paint the picture. It's just more like surrounding evidence that's just like he's this figure. That's how I took it. I don't know. From what I just read there, I could be missing the mark, but
no, because there's still a lot we don't know, so we have to hedge. You know, we're gonna. There's no case that's been made in court yet. We're just hearing the original indictment and allegations, and there's more shit coming out. But like, you know, they also didn't grant him bail.
Yeah, I was. Damn, you read my mind. I was just about to say that. Interesting, he didn't get bail. So I'll break that down. Basically,
please.
Again, I don't know Georgia law specifically, but I know 3 states, enough states. There's 2 purposes of bail, right? So bail is one purpose is to reasonably assure the defendant's appearance at court, right? And then the second purpose of bail is to protect the community at large or specific individuals in the community. So like those are the reasons of that's not bail. Those are the reasons for like pretrial detention, right?
Right.
So if an individual's charged with a crime, you want to make sure that they're going to appear at the next court appearance, and you want to make sure that the community is safe. And if you can assure those things, then they should be allowed, to be free until their next court appearance. So the judge overseeing this case found one of those 2 things to not be true. Again, this is probably public information. Like I could probably find this out, but I imagine it was the first one, right? Because he has money, resources. He's he can get on a private jet and just dip, right? He's basically like, I imagine Young Thug has a lot of pull and sway in Atlanta, and like he can do a lot of things. So they're probably the prosecution probably argued like, all right, like, he's got a lot of money, got a lot of resources. Like we don't know that, you can assure that he's going to appear next time.
But I think, does that also depend on when they make that argument and the judge agrees with the prosecution? I would imagine the judge is taking into account the nature of the crime. So like the prosecution argued the same thing with Raj's case because he was worth $3 billion and, could go anywhere at the drop of a hat. But the judge they made the bail fucking $100 million, but he granted him the bail because it wasn't, I assume, because it wasn't a violent act. In Young Thug's case, because he's being charged with RICO with the connotation that there's all kinds of violent acts happening below there, does that then make the judge go, I'm not even going to give a high number for bail? Because if Raj Rajaratnam gets away, that's fucked up in the judge's mind if he's guilty of this stuff. But if Young Thug gets away, like, what if he goes and kills somebody based on the allegations? Yeah,
I think so. I think that was the second part, like the safety of the community or like specific individuals. So, I guess if someone's accused of violent crimes, like that would factor into it, certainly. But again, it all depends. And there's like so many like measures you can take. You can do like an ankle monitor. You can surrender your passport. You can do like a lot of different things, like house arrest. Like there's so many different things that you can do. The fact that he's sitting in a prison cell is interesting. It's super interesting, and it's again, I didn't listen to the bail hearing, and it can change. Here's the thing: they can file motions and they can have a second bail hearing if circumstances change, and they can move to have different conditions imposed and have him or gonna whatever released. But for now, it looks like they're still in jail, and they've been in jail for a number of months.
So they've tried it twice. Originally in June, I was just pulling this up while you were talking. Originally in June, they weren't granted it bail because they were worried about witness intimidation.
So that, I mean, that's, again, it covers with the two purposes: a reasonably assure appearance, and then safety of community or like specific individuals. Yeah, if there's evidence of like of witness intimidation, then that would be like a textbook reason to say like, no, yeah, you're staying behind bars. If there's credible evidence, and again, bail hearings, the evidentiary standard at a bail hearing is it's not like trial, so you can just basically like. The prosecution can just put someone on the stand and you know, basically there's like hearsay evidence comes in, all types of evidence comes in, right? It's not like a regular trial. So the evidentiary standard is a lot less. So, but there has to be some supporting it. You have to have some evidence. You can't just say, oh, he's young thug, he's going to hurt witnesses. You got to have some witness. You got to have something, some evidence. So at some point there definitely was some evidence that the judge considered. And
well, there was an 88-page indictment where they're saying he's the head of the organization, and the evidence that the judge is considering is that they're alleging that he is the head of this organization, where then all the crimes that are listed in that indictment, therefore under a RICO statute, point back at him.
Yeah.
And I guess I get that, but like I pulled up the article about the third denial in August that just happened, and it actually took the words out of my mouth because it's the next question I'm going to have for you. So it says, Young Thug has been denied bond release for the third time since he was arrested in May. During the first two hearings, the presiding judge ruled that Young Thug could not be granted release because of the belief that he holds a commanding position in the gang. The indictment alleges the Grammy Award-winning rapper was the supposed founder of the Atlanta gang YSL since 2012. Since then, he was denied release because of the judge's fear that he would be tampering with and intimidating witnesses involved in the case. And in the recent heated hearing, Thug's legal team argued, this is what I want to ask you about, argued that the prosecution attributed the song lyrics that were used by the court to indict him as misrepresented. He has been claiming since the previous hearings that he did not write the verses in question. Now, this is where my question is.
All right, let's get here.
And by the way, I don't believe him that he didn't write them. I also don't care that he wrote them. It's fucking rap.
Yeah.
This is a whole big thing. And to support his legal position, if in fact he's right, I'll say, okay, he didn't write them. But this is a whole nother argument that's happening, I believe, in different states now.
All the time.
Where they're trying to say you can't use rap lyrics in court. What the fuck do you think people do? They make songs that are based on themes that work for marketing and based on themes that they may have experienced growing up. It doesn't mean like just because you say like, ooh, I'm called Young Thug, I'm a thug, I'm running the game, we YSL, baby. It doesn't actually mean, like, they're probably sitting there sipping on fucking Hennessy. His boy is in a gang, and he's like, oh, we YSL, we out here, baby. And that's it. And now they're trying to say in court, oh, look, he admitted to all his crimes in his lyrics. Like, is this a realistic thing that they're going to be able to pull this kind of stuff from evidence?
All right, so I'll give you the breakdown.
Break it down, baby.
Here we go. So first, what we just read involved using rap lyrics at a bail hearing, right? So what I just said, at a bail hearing, evidentiary. Why can't I say the word evidentiary?
I can't either.
Yeah. The evidentiary standard is much lower, right? So hearsay comes in, stuff that would normally be too prejudicial, too inflammatory for a jury, whatever, that can come in at a bail hearing.
It's like a grand jury versus a regular jury, kind of same parallel.
Sure,
right?
That's a good, comparison, I guess. But yeah, basically just like way lower threshold, right? So anything that's pretty much just like anything basically comes in at a bail hearing. Not anything, but whatever. So this is being talked about, this article, at a bail hearing. So that's one point I just want to draw the distinction there. But if we're talking about using like rap lyrics at a trial, any piece of evidence that is introduced at trial, there has to be a balancing test, right, for that evidence. Is it more probative than it is prejudicial, right?
What's probative?
Probative means, does it tend to prove something, like a fact at issue at the trial? Is it more? Does it better help prove something versus how prejudicial is it? And prejudicial meaning how much does it hurt the party, right? So how prejudicial how likely would the jury make other inferences from that piece of evidence that have nothing to do with proving facts, right?
Yeah.
So, for instance, how probative, and let's look at a song lyric where he's like, let's say like, I shoot that boy, I shot that boy, I keep that thing on me, whatever it is, all right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, right? How probative is that? How much does that tend to prove whether Young Thug actually committed a shooting versus how likely is the jury to make an inference from that is improper, right? So that's a balancing test that every single piece of evidence goes through.
What was the second one? There's probative, and then what was
versus prejudicial, right?
Okay, and how does that work?
So prejudicial is would the jury make like an just like an improper inference from that, right? So it's like, I guess with the like, I shot that guy, like they could infer that meant that Young Thug actually shot someone, but that would be, versus that is very prejudicial, right? Someone saying I shot someone, but it's in the context of a rap song. Is that really probative of anything?
So, okay, that's a really good way of laying it out. So I understood that. So,
and you can look up on your computer right now. Look up Federal Rule of Evidence 403.
Federal. That's why I love having you in here. You give me the fucking goods. 403.
Yes.
Sounds very official. Does that look right there?
Yes. The court may exclude
right,
relevant evidence.
Let me click the full thing so you can read it. Okay, go ahead.
The court may exclude relevant evidence if its probative value is substantially outweighed by a danger of more of the following: unfair prejudice, confusing the issues, misleading the jury, undue delay, wasting time, etc. But the big one, because it's called the 403 balancing test, is probative versus and it's unfairly prejudicial, right? Because a piece of evidence might be prejudicial, meaning that it hurts your client, right? So like, just because something hurts your client doesn't mean that it shouldn't come in. Because like, if it hurt prejudicial, the word prejudicial, I mean, like, look, if there's a videotape confession of Young Thug saying I killed someone, that's pretty prejudicial to Young Thug,
but
it's not unfairly prejudicial. It's not like the jury's making the wrong inference, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So this is what's really interesting about this one, though, is it is so subjective. I'm talking about the judge right now.
Yep.
The judge
it comes down to the judge. It comes down to I mean, look, I clerked for a criminal judge, right? And like, we dealt with this stuff all the time, and like pretrial motions. A lot of this stuff comes out in pretrial motions, right? And so what's good about this is like, if Young Thug is eventually tried, they will the attorneys will likely hash this out prior to trial. So like, you can keep the jury out of those types of decisions. Yeah,
because you're talking about all this where we're at all pretrial hearings right now. So there's no jury, but you're talking about hypothetically the evidence that's going to be allowed at trial.
Yes.
So when we're looking at the rap lyrics, have there been rappers before, even guys who are known, not just like, somebody no one knows, who have rapped about things that are very illegal that they actually have done? Yes.
I mean, yeah.
How many times you don't even have to give me a percentage though. How many fucking lyrics have been put out there that a dude never did, never had any part of? He's putting in a fucking rap song. It is overwhelming in that direction. So now a guy's on trial. The actual federal government, well, in this case, the state of Georgia, has made a huge case. Well, now it seems relevant, right? But just because they made a case, if they made a case where they're basing a lot of it off his rap lyrics, it could very well be bullshit, because you also have to take into account, like we were saying at the outset of this, where is he from? Who are some people he was friends with when he was growing up who maybe he doesn't stop from hanging in the studio right now? And how much fucking responsibility does he have for what they do? Listen, I have some friends who do some things that, maybe I don't agree with. It's not, I don't judge how a man makes a living. That's not up to me.
Who are your friends, dog?
Don't worry about it. But I'm saying, like, if suddenly someone came in here and said, "We got you, Julian. You're the head of the fucking TRENDIFIER conspiracy because this guy was," not going to say whatever, but doing X, Y, and Z. Like, I'd be like, so I let him hang out in my studio? I'm fucking guilty of the shit. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you, right? So like there, I think, and you can look this up. I think there was legislation proposed or passed in New York to stop this very thing from happening. But what and I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? So what's the flip side then? You're shaking your head. What was it?
Yeah, I'm shaking my head in agreement just because you asked me to pull that up.
Oh, yeah.
So let's read this article off. I'm going to put it up right here. Go ahead. It's behind you.
Oh, yeah. New York Senate passes bill preventing prosecutors from using rap lyrics against rappers in criminal cases. Yeah.
Right there.
Word. Does New York have a house? Is it passed? I don't know how.
I don't know. A bill was passed in the New York Senate prohibiting prosecutors from using lyrics rappers use in songs as evidence against them in a criminal trial. Bill now heads to the state assembly where it will become a law if it passes there. This is in May. So Senate bill whatever was passed by a 38 to 23 vote. The bill limits the admissibility of evidence of a defendant's creative or artistic expression against such defendant. So that's more than just rap lyrics. That can cover other things.
Sculptures. Sculpting some incriminating shit.
But, wait a second. Hold on. We're going to talk about this. Earlier this year, People obtained a letter from Jay-Z's Team Rock attorney Alex Spiro and University of Richmond professor Eric Nielsen that showed entertainers Jay-Z, Meek Mill, Killer Mike. I got to talk to you about Killer Mike off camera. Right. Big Sean, I'm a fan. Kelly Rowland, Robin Thicke, Fat Joe, and Yo Gotti signed the letter sent to lawmakers that states that reform is urgently needed. So this is interesting. Roc Nation is on this one. And you haven't seen the McMonagle thing, but you and I talked about his thoughts on that.
That's cool.
They don't fuck around with that shit.
No, they're very active. Yeah, I respect that. But yeah, my 2 cents on this is, right, so I probably agree with like a law like this. But then I'm just going to play devil's advocate,
Go
right?
ahead, please.
Do we really want a system where if someone is they've done serious crimes and then they just like they directly talk about it in their rap songs, do we want a system where that can't come into a court of law? I don't. And having said that, I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal, right? Because it's not like that's the only evidence or that's like even a linchpin of evidence, right? Like if someone commits these crimes that they're being charged with, there's going to be other evidence, right? You're going to need other evidence. I don't know what the import of just someone saying like, I shot that dude, whatever. I do think it's unfairly prejudicial, right? Because I exactly what we're talking about. I think a jury hears that and they hear that and they make the inference, oh wow, if he said it, it must be true. But really, it is an artistic expression. Right. So like I think the rules of evidence basically already had like a safeguard for this type of scenario. But yeah.
How about this? Just throw this out there. And maybe I'm not thinking of some examples where this wouldn't fit the bill fairly, but if you're building your whole case based on rap lyrics, you don't have a case.
No. You definitely.
Well, why can't you do? Look, unfortunately, I say unfortunately because it's fucked up. It's not hard to get wiretaps in this country. These guys have no problem in these secret courts getting wiretaps. Yeah. Go get, and there's allegedly like some wiretaps or something, but again, we're not hearing much about that right now, so we'll have to see what that is. But like, go get your fucking wiretaps. Why do you need the rap lyrics if they're gonna say it on their fucking phone? That's a lot better than rap lyrics. Like, guess what? People don't put their lyrics on the phone unless they're literally singing the song to their friend. Like, hey, what do you think of that bar? That's a fact because you say, and the devil's advocate's fair. You're saying like, well, what if that's a good place to spot where people are literally admitting stuff? Okay, but again, I'll go back to my first argument. I think it's a minimal number of people doing that. So if you want to find the exceptions to the rule and then make that the whole rule, that's a problem to me. Whereas if it were the other way around, whereas usually a rapper who says something on there, they're actually doing it, let's say 90% of the time, then it's a different conversation. I don't think that's the case. I think these guys are literally... Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've seen it in person. Like they're making shit up sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't know what this legislation says. Like, if it says anything that's in a song can't come into evidence, but it says it limits the admissibility of evidence of a defendant's creative or artistic expression against such defendant in a criminal proceeding, and it's in quotes, so I imagine that's probably in the text of the bill.
Right.
That doesn't mean shit to me. I mean, we just went through 403, right, which basically, you know, in my opinion, already covers that to a certain extent. So,
which one was 403 again?
It was the probative versus prejudicial, right?
Okay.
So to me, just limiting the admissibility still, as written, to me, I'm assuming, all right, in certain circumstances, if it's really egregious or it really lines up with what their allegations, if it's like, I shot him at noon on a Tuesday with a Glock 9, like in the shoulder, like whatever. Like, and what if he says all that stuff in a rap song, and none of those are like facts that are known to the public, and it's like, and they all line up. Like in a situation like that, it's like, that's a pretty big expression of guilt. Do we want to keep that out of a court?
Here's actually, you just made me think of one. This
Yeah.
is a good point. What if the guy wrote that or rapped that in a song, whatever it was, shot a guy outside of his house in a whatever, and let's say, and this is not relevant, I'm making this up right now, but let's say that there was a video camera footage feed of someone doing exactly that, where they're wearing a ski mask so you can't make out their face. And they said that in a rap song. That's where the smoke is fired to me. And now in New York, they wouldn't be able to use that. So it's kind of weird because I understand you have to have some sort of cement within the law. I get that. You know, it's just the reality of what things are. But how do you try to create a system where there's a burden? I'm making up terms right now because I'm not a lawyer, but there's like burden of proof exceptions. Like if you can corroborate it with 3 other variables that are one of A, B, C, D, E, or F, then you can introduce it. Before then, you cannot use it on its own as evidence.
I mean, yeah, that's like, well, we're talking like very like specific, like it'd have to be very specific legislation. And you think about like the rules of evidence, right? They're supposed to be used, you know, they're supposed to be relatively straightforward. It's not supposed to be like super complicated. Like there's so many things that happen at trial that you know, it's kind of on the fly, right? So, you know, what you just said, like corroborating whatever, like you already lost me. I'm like, that's very hard to follow. But I think this law basically says it. And what I just said with this law is it says it limits the admissibility. It didn't say totally inadmissible.
Oh, so wait, hold on. I missed that. Sorry. That's what it said?
Limits the admissibility, right?
Okay.
I don't personally take that as mean to be totally inadmissible.
So the headline's wrong. The headline says, passes bill preventing prosecutors from using rap lyrics against rappers. That's technically wrong.
Well, we just saw that quote. It might limit the
admissibility.
Totally limit it. I don't know. You know, I haven't read it, but I'm just saying a lot of times laws and legislation, they're not totally, it seems like a drastic step to say under no circumstances could this otherwise relevant in, you know, like evidence that corroborates like a murder, like could this never come in? You know what I mean?
Right.
But that might be the case, and I'm cool with it. I don't think it's that big of a deal, right? Because if that's all, if a guy did shoot someone, and he's like, I was wearing like a yellow polo and like blue socks and this, and like I shot him at this location and this hour with this gun and this like whatever, and none of this is like public information, and he says it on a rap song, and you have him on video, and the video is not public, whatever. Like, I mean, and that's all you got is just him saying it. Like, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay with that guy who is probably dumb enough for saying that shit that he probably should be in jail, but I'm okay with that guy going free. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay, like philosophically, did I say that right? Philosophically, yeah, whatever. Yeah. I'm okay with that guy going free. So
I think for the system to work, and it's tough to stomach when you think about like the gravity of some crimes, like prime example, like O.J. Simpson, right? Like we all think there's a strong chance he did that.
No,
pretty much, literally.
No,
did it,
really?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
You think?
But like he went free, right? That's the system working because the prosecutors argued a terrible case, and so you're keeping the government in check. So that's a lot to stomach. Like, holy shit, he murdered 2 people, including his wife, brutally. But he's free, and it's not good. But when you take, that's one anecdotal case. When you take that into account with everything, and you take into account when prosecutors put an innocent man in prison, this is where, you know what I mean? It's very hard to process, but...
Yeah, there's like a quote, I don't know if it's a quote or like a parable, I don't know, whatever. It's like, but it's just better to have like 100 guilty men go free than 1 innocent man.
I agree.
In jail. And you know, there's definitely some quote out there that says that, but that's pretty much been accepted, and that's kind of that's what the like lean of our legal system should be. It like we have a very high standard of proof for criminal convictions. So like there should be guilty people going free, you know? Like
the law of averages says that.
Exactly. Yes. There should be like a lot of guilty people going free. And you'd hope that there aren't many innocent people in jail, which we all know that's not true. There are innocent people in jail that people get exonerated all the time.
I've heard a number from all different people, and they come up with like their own range, but the range always falls in 7 to 10%, where they say 7 to 10, and these are usually people who are in prisons themselves, who are, you know, working on issues or whatever, or have been around prisons. And I have a lot of belief in that, where they say 7 to 10% are either fully innocent or a lot innocent of what they ended up being charged with, and various things went wrong in either their defense or the government pressure on them from a monetary means, power means, whatever, that forced them into situations. And a very common one there is when people are forced to plead to something because it's like, oh, I'm facing life. I don't want to take my chances. I'll take the 15 years. When in reality, they really do want to go to trial because they didn't do it. And some of them are lying, obviously, but some of them aren't. You know, that's a, you know, fuck, man. I talk about this a lot because I've mentioned it is my phobia, but my ultimate phobia is that I'm in a box 6x8 for something I didn't do. I can't even fathom that.
Yeah, that is one of those. Yeah, that keeps everyone up. I feel like if you actually think about it, me just thinking about it right now, imagining like being accused of a serious crime, and knowing you didn't do it, but not being able to prove it and not being able to do anything about it. That's horrible. And it's not like there's like some good solution for it. I mean, you think now that, you know, I mean, a lot of these, you know, I don't know if are you familiar with the Innocence Project?
Of course.
Yeah, the Innocence Project. Yeah, they're like in every state, whatever. It's like a
Ryan, who's coming in here. I mentioned this right before we got on. The chairman of his board is Jason Flom, who's also I believe he's one of the founding board members of the Innocence Project. The shit they do is amazing.
They're like a nonprofit organization that like advocate, you know, like they do like post-conviction relief stuff, which I know I can talk all day about like post-conviction stuff. Randomly, I'm super into that stuff.
All right,
but
we'll get there.
But anyway, they advocate for you know a lot of post-conviction relief, and back in like the 70s, 80s, whatever, they just didn't have the DNA evidence, and like there were so many convictions, and like you'd think like, all right, they've tested all the evidence now and like they've sorted it out, but it's still just like there's like every other day, like every other week, whatever, you're seeing someone like exonerated because of DNA evidence.
What pisses me off to no end is when prosecutors who quite literally were not around when those cases went through, who really have no one's going to blame them for what happens here, when they suppress the argument for new evidence that is scientifically backed to be presented. That is criminal to me. That is not a you know, just dude or woman doing their position as prosecutor and just being a hardball, you know, fucking difficult person to deal with. That's criminal. If you have someone come to you Innocence, I don't care who it is, Innocence Project, another attorney, whatever, and say, I have DNA evidence that this rape murder that did not have DNA available or whatever, or you didn't find this when it was going on, I have DNA evidence that will show that this man who is sitting life in prison and has been there for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, didn't do it. If you weren't around then, just say, okay, present it. If it's not true, fuck them. If it's true, let's see it. I don't know why this is hard. I can't. That is one thing I cannot wrap my head around that.
Yeah. So I'll try and play devil's advocate, right?
Please.
And I'll explain, I guess, a bit of like the conviction, appeal, post-conviction process, right?
Yeah, can you run through that? I've actually never really looked into this enough, so.
So when you're convicted of a crime, you can appeal, right? But you can only appeal. You can't just like, say I appeal and say like I don't agree with this. I want to get a new trial or a new opinion or whatever. You have to appeal on certain aspects of your case, right? So if you're and this is if you were tried by a jury or judge, whatever, and you went through a trial and they entered a verdict, right?
Is that called a bench trial when they do that?
Bench trial,
Judge?
yeah, judge trial, yeah.
Okay.
So you would appeal, and you'd say, for instance, this bit of evidence, it could be a good thing. For instance, like rap lyrics. They used rap lyrics against me, and I think that the court committed like an error when they allowed those rap lyrics to come in, and then the appellate court would say, yes, they committed a reversible error, whatever. You get a new trial, or no, they'd say, that was even if it was error, that was a harmless error. It wouldn't change the outcome of the trial anyway. So nope, boom, you're screwed. Okay, so once you've exhausted, that's called your direct appeal, and you can appeal, on many different things, whatever. Once you've exhausted your direct appeal, then you're allowed to what's called file a collateral appeal, right? So, yeah. So now I'm getting.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that.
So
explain that.
There's this PCRA, Post-Conviction Relief Act. I don't know if that's specific to Pennsylvania, but I know every state has an avenue where you can appeal your conviction on a collateral appeal, and that is raising collateral appeal just means raising matters that are like outside the courtroom. So you would initially so that's where you hear about all these and this is where it gets complicated, and this is where I'm kind of playing devil's advocate, right? So a lot of people will appeal their trial and say, I was denied my Sixth Amendment right to like effective assistance of counsel, right? So they'll say my lawyer was crappy. He didn't object onto this evidence. He didn't do this. He did this wrong. He did this wrong. Whatever, and you'll appeal that. So you first have to go through your state. You appeal that to your state appellate court. Then
is this in every state?
Every state has an avenue where you do a collateral appeal also, right? You appeal to your state appellate court, then you can appeal that to your state Supreme Court, whatever. And again, it would be it wouldn't be. You've already exhausted your appeal with the actual matters of the trial. So then this would be something like, like my lawyer was shitty, or like
this is after you've done all regular appeals. You're saying,
yeah, or like some other type of violation, like a confrontation clause violation, like some, and we don't have to get into like other like constitutional like violations, something like that. So then you go and then you exhaust those appeals. Once you've done that, then you are actually able to file like a habeas corpus action in federal court, right?
What does that mean again?
So that means you just sue. You basically sue. It's a civil action. So you sue you'll sue like your warden, or you'll sue the like jail that you have, and you'll say you keeping me in jail is a violation of my rights. And you basically then allege the same things you would have alleged in the PCRA, right? So like you'll allege like my lawyer was shitty, like there was like a confrontation clause is like a tricky one. Like I'm trying to think of examples where it's like you have like certain defendants testify, like it's hard for me to explain, and it's kind of complicated, but like you can allege other like constitutional violations, right? And then a federal court will hear that, right? A federal court can then rule like, okay, actually, this witness was, I'm trying to think of there's an example where it's like if it's like co-defendants, right? And they're not supposed to say the name of like another. They're supposed to keep someone's name like silent, but then they say the name of the other defendant, and like that they weren't supposed to say that because the trials were severed or whatever. Like that can then like it's like constitutional violations like that, and then once you're in federal court, then the federal court can say, all right, actually, no, that's BS. Like you get a new trial, or like you're allowed to,
Question on this with a specific example. I don't know if this might be a hard one to break down, but as far as like when you're making the argument of attorney malpractice, right? Which is one of the ones you mentioned.
It's called IAC, ineffective assistance of counsel.
Okay. So one of the stories that was a theme throughout my conversation.
Different than malpractice, just to clarify.
How's it different than malpractice?
Malpractice is like a civil thing. This is like a straight up constitutional, like you were denied effective assistance of counsel.
Okay. So legally different in my mind. I'm trying to refer to the same shit. Okay. Perfect though. One of the stories Brian told early on that got referred to several times throughout my conversation with him, because it was he picked a really good one to use as an example. He was talking about when he was a prosecutor, one that really sticks with him is this woman, I think her name was Cheryl. Was her last name Hines? It was Cheryl. I don't remember her last name. But she was found guilty of first-degree murder. He did not want to find her guilty of first-degree murder. What happened was her husband was cheating on her. She figured it out. She went over to the other bitch's house. That woman answered the door. She's like, "Where's my fucking husband?" And the woman's like, "Oh, no, don't do that." Long story short, she ends up, I think it was she killed the woman by accident because she had a gun, and it like kind of went off. Crime of passion, the whole bit. So she goes to get charged with it. And Brian goes to her defense counsel and says, "Hey, to me, she's charged with murder 1. I can charge her with murder 3 and let the judge do some justice here and not give her life in prison without parole and actually give her a second chance," because he's like, this isn't a premeditated murder. It's bad. It's a murder. But like, I understand this isn't an irredeemable person who can't ever be in society again. The lawyer was some young hotshot, and he was like, "Fuck you, we're going. It's actually involuntary manslaughter or whatever." And he's like, "Dude, we're going to clean your clock in this case. Like, it's done deal. We have a witness, whatever. She's going to get found guilty." He's like, no, she's not. Goes to trial. She gets found guilty of first-degree murder, life without parole. Now, that's where he explained the story. He became a defense attorney after that, and he thinks about it a lot, but I didn't ask him about, like, this appeal process or anything. Could she argue in a court of law, and I think he would do this if he was asked. I'm pretty sure he would. She's been in there for fucking 30 years now. Could she say, "I had an ineffective counsel. The prosecutor, by the way, here's his testimony, the same guy, wanted to offer me murder 3, and my guy said no because he wanted to try to win the case, which was a very bad move." Could she go in with a collateral, whatever the official term was, and say, "I had ineffective counsel"?
I don't think so. And
why?
And here's why. Because unless it doesn't sound like there's a difference between making the wrong decision and making like and depriving your client of their constitutional right to counsel, right? Of effective counsel, right? Because he got the information from the prosecutor and took the offer back to his client, right? Yes. Presumably. Yes. He informed his client.
Well, we think. We don't even know that.
And he advised his client. Well, let's assume that, right?
Let's
Because
assume
if he
it, yes.
didn't advise his client of that, then I do think, for instance, if they had that conversation, you absolutely any plea deals, you have to advise your client, right? So if he got the plea offer and he just like was like, nah, screw you, we're taking it to trial, and didn't tell his client, then I think you could get a ineffective assistance of counsel claim there. But if he went talked to and you're saying Brian was
he was a prosecutor
at the time.
Yeah.
Talked to Brian, and then said, nah, screw you, and then went back and told his client, like, yeah, he offered us this, but we're taking it to trial. And the client agreed, even though he was heavily influencing her and like very much like influencing her decision. I don't think that's ineffective assistance of counsel. He made the wrong decision, and it probably cost her her life. But I don't think that's really actionable.
Wow. So
And-
that's not.
Yeah. And
This is a really. This is a tight boundary.
it's a tough standard. It's a tough standard. So I don't know. There's like 3 elements to it, dude. And now I'm getting like, I'm coming out remembering parts of like my brain that I haven't even thought of in years. There's like, you have to do, like, your lawyer has to do something wrong. It has to be, and you have to like, there's a couple more, like your lawyer has to do something wrong. It has to be something that like no reasonable lawyer would have done. And then it has to be something that would have like changed the outcome of the trial.
And
right?
the judge has to rule on this subjectively, therefore, because it's a human being ruling on it effectively.
Yeah. So like, yeah, we're talking at the, like on the collateral appeal, right?
Yeah.
So like, think of how hard that standard is, right? So like, all right, you got to say that your lawyer did something that was like, you got to allege your lawyer did something wrong, that there wasn't a reason for it, like a good reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to say that the case, it would have changed the outcome of the case, right? Because other than that, it's just a harmless error. It's just like, oh, well, because think about it. I mean, that's an important element. Because if your lawyer didn't object to like, if a witness testified to some minor like detail that was maybe not like some minor like hearsay thing, like a witness testified, and there was like a homeless guy like that asked me for change, like, all right, that's hearsay evidence, right? Like that's an out of court statement coming in, but like that doesn't affect anything, right? Like, fine, you can object to like some random homeless guy that was just on the street saying, hey, can I have some change?
Right.
But like that's not going to change the course of a trial. Sorry, I'm getting really into
that
it.
was fucking great, man. I love it. It's because whenever I'm talking to people who actually understand the law and they're not just trying to figure it out when I read articles and shit, I always kind of assume that there's like some sort of objective procedure that has like 3 to 5 steps that I don't know about with this stuff. And what you're laying out right there confirms that for this, which is that you can't just like claim it and then try to say, well, he did this. No, there has to be like, all right, there's a menu of whatever, A, B, C, and D. Which one of these could be applicable? So you can't just say it on anything. But that also, you don't want to make a system where people can get out of things easily. I get that. 100%.
And that was my point when I said, and we got off on this whole tangent.
Yeah.
When you were saying like, why is this DNA evidence not like all tested? Like why could someone argue against that? Because we have such a system where you can like make these claims. Like there is almost everyone in jail that's in jail for life is constantly filing like petitions.
Of course.
Right. So
how many of them have DNA though?
I don't know. And another thing is that here's this, right? So there's also, and I told you that there's another avenue that I didn't tell you about, right? So
let's go there.
So like you can allege on this habeas petition, right? This is after you exhausted your direct appeal, after you exhausted your collateral appeal.
And you said this is a civil thing. Right?
It's a civil suit, a habeas corpus suit. I forget the statutes, but it's a federal statute. It's a civil suit, but it's like basically, it's the same thing as the collateral appeal. Basically, you argue the same thing. There's I think it's called the actual innocence exception. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but basically, like something for like, newly discovered evidence, things like that would tend to prove your actual innocence, right?
Yes.
So at that point, you're not arguing that you were deprived of like, your constitutional right, because you can exhaust those avenues in habeas as well. So like once you've argued that like, all right, my lawyer was shitty, he deprived me of my constitutional right to like effective assistance of counsel, like they're like the federal habeas court's like, no. Then like later you can say, all right, like this new evidence came out, or like a big one that's like, kind of like floods courts a bit is like witnesses retracting their statement. So like after 20 years, you can go, like, think about a case. After 20 years, like something happened when someone was 18, you can call up that main witness and get her to sign an affidavit saying like, I don't really remember. I think it was different, because people's memories fade.
Banks.
Yeah, people's memories fade. They change over time. So that's a big one. That's just like, all right, like, do you, if you testified and you were sure of something 20 years ago, you're like, obviously you're not going to remember it the same 20 years from now. Right. So like you can get this person to sign an affidavit, whatever. So that's a big one that kind of, I mean, look, I'm all for people getting their day in court, and I don't think an innocent person should be behind bars, but that's one where it's, I don't want to say exploited, but that's an avenue that's utilized a lot. It's just getting witnesses to say they don't remember or recant their statements or whatever after years and years and years have passed.
Yeah, and eyewitness testimony is a whole different conversation too, because technically it is one of the most least reliable things. So I guess just one of the least reliable things there is, because people don't, you talk about perjury. Sometimes, yes, it's absolutely perjury if someone's making shit up or whatever, and they know damn well they're making it up. But there's other times where people think, yeah, I saw this, whether it's through different psychological anchoring that happened to them when they were talking about the investigation or what they thought they saw. Like, I consider it in my own life with things I've seen. I'm like, did I really see that? I don't know. I question that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And it puts people in a tough spot. It's when you have corroborating evidence all over the place. So when you see things where there's 30 people who were in different places, not next to each other, saying the same shit, okay, yeah, that's probably how it went. But when it's one guy who's like, yeah, I definitely saw this, you've seen it in court where lawyers can have someone on the stand for a few hours and crack them 2 hours in, because suddenly like, oh, but that's not what you said. You said this, and it's not necessarily, the person's not lying. It's just, it's a psychological phenomenon,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's like, the science is like starting to come out on that, like a lot of like witness identifications, especially to be honest, cross-racial identification is terrible, right? Like people are just not good at identifying people of other races, and you can Google it right now.
Really?
Cross-racial identification.
I haven't seen any recent news on
right.
this, like we're saying.
I mean, I learned about it in law school, and like I'm just familiar with it. Like if a white guy observes a black guy commit a crime, whatever, he's shown like a lineup, like he's much more likely to like pick incorrectly. And
meaning it may not be on purpose at all. It may just
no. It's just it's whatever it is. It's the same. It's just like basically.
Like when you talk to any race, when you talk to and seriously, I mean this. Like people are thinking about some of the joking context right now, but when you talk to any larger race, if you want to talk to a larger race of black people, people who are, let's say, like European white, people who are Mediterranean white, I say that in air quotes, I don't really know, people who are Asian, they will all say about, like, if you are not in that race, you will have another race say, yeah, they kind of all look the same to me. And it's not, we take that as racist in some things now, but there is a psychological phenomenon.
There's empirical evidence to say, I'm not going to say, like, they all look the same. But I would say cross-racial identifications are terrible. People are bad at picking, especially, so like that is unreliable evidence, in my opinion, when it comes to the criminal process.
This is a little small. You're closer to it. Can you just read the first two paragraphs here? on this article.
Eyewitness testimony was often thought of as the best evidence in a criminal trial. Today, experts are learning it's not so reliable, especially when the witnesses and the suspect are of different races. The concept is called cross-race effect, and it was first mentioned in research published in the Journal of Criminal Law and Police Science in 1914. It is defined as a tendency for individuals to better recognize members of their own race or ethnicity and be worse at recognizing people of another race. Cross-race effect has contributed to numerous eyewitness misidentifications.
So they've been looking at this for a fucking century.
Yeah, no, it's nothing new. Like I mean, like we learned about it in law school. It's definitely like a thing. I mean, this article, I'm sure there's some numbers. I'm sure you can get some raw numbers, and that was published in a journal. I'm sure there was some numbers in that main journal, but it's just one of those things where you know, for the longest time, people didn't really question it. They were like, "Oh, it was this guy? Okay, good." You know, and again, there are certain like explicit biases, whatever, however you say that word.
Yeah,
explicit biases that people have, but this is one of those that was not that's not really explicit. It's just like people are just, you know, if I'm a white guy and I grew up in a house in a community with like white guys, I'm just not as good at identifying for like a split second, like, you know, an Asian guy or like, you know, a Hispanic guy, you know?
Think about it. Think about your environment during your developmental years. Every day, your eyes are taking in data. That's what we do. So we take in data of the people who are closest to us all the time. So that is what we learn to immediately, like when we first get an image on something, we can associate distinct qualities on that. When we're not around someone who may have a different look to them through literal ethnicity of somewhere in the world, we don't recognize those same things because we don't have it's math. We don't have as many data points in our head to be able to be like, oh, right, yeah. So when you then spend time around people of another ethnicity for a long time, then suddenly that's not a problem because now you do learn to recognize those things. So I believe this, and it's not, you know, people love to throw around racism on everything. This is very clearly not, this is a defined human gene that is perfectly explainable without someone being racist. It's just something that needs to be considered in a court of law when you're looking at who the eyewitness is and what they're identifying. I
mean, people are racist. There's a lot of racism, you know, that happens, whatever. But this, in and of itself, I mean, anyone can fall victim to it, you know. And I think there's studies that have just done it that are just like consistently people are just bad at identifying, you know.
Right.
People of other races and ethnicities.
But what we've been talking about is all this like extra, say, circumstantial evidence that can come into play in these cases, be it attorney fuck-ups, and it started with like rap lyrics and stuff. So it's funny the lengths that this stuff can go sometimes where you don't think about unintended, like, quote-unquote consequences. So I was thinking about this while you were saying it, but I forgot to say it a while ago. There was another case. This one was done out of the federal district court in, I guess, Boston, so Massachusetts or whatever.
Fun fact, I'm actually pro-hocked in that court right now.
Fuck does that mean?
I'm like, I have a squid fishing vessel case in Boston right now. Judge, what's the judge's name?
How does that work? So you can argue cases up there, even though you're not barred in Massachusetts?
Yeah, we have local counsel. They're all like,
Is that pro hoc vice?
Pro hoc vice.
I know my shit. There we go.
But we say
you taught me that.
Pro hoc. Yeah. But yeah, I'm in there. What's the judge's name? Judge is like some Irish name, like every party in there is
Carnahan.
Irish. Yeah, it's like Judge. I don't want to. I forget. I should know the judge's name. Damn. But yeah, it's a whatever case, but it's fun fact, just fun fact.
So is that's a federal case then, because it's up there? And
yes, yeah.
Okay, got it. So there was a case in front of that court though, and a whole nother rabbit hole we can go down maybe later is like how they decide, like when you see a case filed in the Southern District of New York, like how they decided to do it there. If it's like something that fucking happened in Hawaii, but it was interstate, like versus trying it in Massachusetts. So the reason I say that is because this case was I saw it at first in a documentary by Alex Gibney called, I think it was called Crime of the Century. It was through HBO like a year ago. He talked, it was all about the opium wars and like the Sacklers and everything, which is a whole separate thing. But he covered this case because it had to do with opium. And one of the things they said in that documentary was the prosecutor in Massachusetts talked about why they decided to do this in Massachusetts, because that particular prosecutorial government team had an expertise in, I forget what it was, but they decided to try it there. So I don't know how that whole thing works. That's a separate thing. But this Insys case was, it was a pharmaceutical company that had a fentanyl product. I forget, it was some sort of spray. It was fucked up stuff. But
jeez,
they were pushing these sales through just like the Sacklers push OxyContin. And there was all kinds of crazy shit going on. They charged everyone. They got all guilty convictions. But one of the things that happened was the chief sales officer, I guess, who ended up being a government witness. He was still found guilty and went to prison. But he commissioned some sort of competition among his sales reps where, I mean, you want to talk about something effective in a jury. Have you ever seen Better Call Saul, that show?
I have not. I have not.
Oh my God. You have to watch that.
People say that.
One of the first, I think it was the first episode ever. It starts with like Saul making an argument and he runs through his whole thing and you're like, oh wow, that's really compelling. And then it's a closing statement. And then he finishes, the prosecutor gets up, looks at the jury, doesn't say a word, wheels out a TV, looks at the jury, presses play on the thing and sits there, and you watch the whole crime go. It's like a really fucked up crime, and you just see Saul like looking down, and then he like wheels the TV away. No further statement, whatever, they're found guilty. So this was kind of that moment in that case.
Hilarious.
This sales officer had all his sales reps do a contest to create a music video about their fucking sales.
About their fentanyl
Yes.
spray.
Bro, it's actually, I can pull it up. I believe if I skip ahead, it's because this is copyright. I don't think it's copyright protected. But if you hear a skip, that's why I'm doing it. But I want to play this so that people can see it. This was the winning video that was played. And again, if you're not, if it's
Well,
gonna skip ahead right now, the video for you people that want to look it up, it's called Subsys, SUBSYS rap video created by Insys Pharmaceuticals.
When was this created?
This was in, I believe, like 2014. Listen to this.
Yeah, this is
It's
disgusting.
so bad. All right, so I'm going to cut it right there at 2:10. There's like another 2 minutes left. But titration, just to be clear, the definition of that so that people understand, because the hook was like, I love titrations, that's my fucking problem, or whatever.
It's set to 2 Chainz. I love bad bitches, that's my fucking problem.
Is it 2 Chainz or is it A$AP Rocky? Am I misremembering?
No,
that?
A$AP Rocky's in. It's A$AP Rocky, 2 Chainz, and K Dot, I think.
Right, yeah, okay. So titration is a way to limit potential side effects by taking time to see how your body will react to a drug. In titration, the medication is started at a low dose. Every couple of weeks, the dose is raised, up titrated, until the maximum effective dose, target dose, has been achieved or side effects occur, which means it gets more and more addictive the higher you take it. And the idea is that you start low and continue moving them higher so that they get addicted to the drug like a subscription. And they put this in a fucking rap video. And of course, by the way, these were the sales reps at the fucking company. Sorry, I'm playing that again. But of course, they played this at the trial. So if this were New York now and they were making this case in 2023, hypothetically, they couldn't play this. But this is incredible evidence right there, because it's a disgusting, you know, they're saying exactly what they do, and there's evidence to say that the company was proud of it.
All right. And tell me if you want me to just shut up. You should
never shut up. Keep
maybe
going.
shut up about the legal stuff. But all right.
I love the legal stuff.
I'm going to argue that this comes in because it's not like an artistic expression. It's marketing.
But they're not playing it for clients. They're only playing it internally.
But I guess that's art. But was it created by the company?
Created by the company to be played internally.
There you go. No, it comes in. It's not like a pure artistic expression.
Because it's a company-generated project?
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting.
That would be my argument.
Because I would never want to throw this out. as an American citizen in a case being
but like
fairly tried, I'd want to see this.
Talk about unfairly prejudicial. Like, they're terrible at rapping, and like as a jury, like I wouldn't want to sit through that. Like, I'd be like, throw those guys in jail.
Well, they're not the ones on trial. It's
well, they
the
fucking
other dudes
should
on
be.
Trial. But I saw that. I was thinking about that the other night because I'm like, wait a second, would that be admissible now? Like with these other laws going into effect? I don't know, but it goes to show you, whenever you make a law or like a ruling on something, it has downstream effects that perhaps in certain contexts can't be foreseen. And then it could be something really controversial like this, like a literal fentanyl trial, you know? It's like, imagine if they couldn't, I think they still would have found the guys guilty, I think. But it'd be harder if they couldn't have played this.
Sure. Yeah, and that's just like the beauty of law and stuff like that is like it's just a mess. You never know what's going to affect this and that, and you know, that's why lawyers have jobs.
Fuck yeah, there's a lot of them too, but
there's too many. There
are too many. But it's funny, when you need one, holy shit, it's important to have them.
Yeah.
But with this Young Thug case, just to close this out, so we're still in the pre-trial phase. Trial's technically like tentatively set for January.
That'll get pushed for sure.
Why do you say that'll get pushed?
There's many reasons. Rarely, I mean, just for the simple fact that rarely a trial of that like magnitude. Think of they've got 28 gang members. I mean, there's multiple motions. There's going to be motions to sever to separate trial. Like, are they going to try 28 defendants at once? Is it all one case now? You got to sever that. Like, there's so much issues that have to be resolved. Like everything we just talked about, you know, lyrics. Does a jury get to see that? Whatever. And January, that's a couple months from now, you know? So that's not going to happen by January. I would bet, I'd bet anything on it. And trials get continued regularly. So it's just, you know.
Well, actually, there's another question on this whole thing, because I always wonder about this, especially when I've seen like mob cases in the past where this happens. But how does it work when you have a case where it's the same case, but there's multiple defendants? Maybe they even have slightly different charges, and then they each have their own attorney, and the case is done in the same courtroom in front of the same jury. Like, do those defense attorneys all have to work together, or will they work against each other? Like, what's the dynamic there?
So, as a defense attorney, your loyalty is to your client, right? So, if I'm a defense attorney, it's fuck all the other defendants. I'm presenting the case, presenting the defense that is in the best interest of my client, right? To that end, if it's beneficial to you, you would move to sever the trials, have different trials for different defendants. It also depends factually what the circumstances are. So it's and to be honest, I'm not super up on like moving to sever trials. There's also
moving to what?
Like sever. The words I'm saying sever.
Separate them out, meaning have different juries.
Yes,
in different cases.
Joe Blow is the only defendant in the courtroom, and then a jury decides his case, and then Joe Schmo, whatever.
It does seem like every time you look at one of these big trials where there's an 88-page indictment and stuff like that, it's almost a formality. They say January, and it's going to be in fucking August, you know? So I almost wonder why they do that, why they even set a trial date ahead of time. Just be like, no, we're going to have these hearings. We'll figure it out then, and then we'll start to figure out when the trial is going to be. But at the same time, they can drag out sometimes for years, and someone's life is in limbo all this time. That, you know, the civil rights part of that's a whole nother thing too.
True. I mean, you have a right to a speedy trial under the U.S. Constitution, but you waive that right because it's in the best interest of your defense, right? Because you need time to build to gather defense witnesses and facts and doing your own investigation. So true. I mean, technically speaking, I get what you're saying, right? Like, all right, like you could be sitting in limbo for years, and you don't know when your trial's going to be. But at that point, you would have waited. Like you're probably the one asking for continuances because the court will only grant the state like a certain number of continuances before they'll say no. You got to put you're the state, you're the government. You got to put on your case. So,
but they'll be the opposite with the defense. You're saying
true. I mean, in certain instances, I mean, there's a lot of agreement, right? So, like, I don't care what case it is, there is a lot of agreement between the prosecutor and the defense attorney because, you just have to agree on certain things, right? So, like, if the prosecutor comes and says, look, can we get we're going to ask for a continuance here. You may not object because, down the road, you're going to ask for 5 more continuances on certain things. So like that's just working with each other. I would say certainly yes. I'd say judges probably favor. I mean there are constitutional protections for like speedy trials, but like once you've like kind of waived that, then you're pretty much once you've waived that you've pretty much waived that, right? So But then at that point, it's just the judge managing their cases and their dockets, right? So like they don't want to just have something sitting forever. So like the judge will keep keep either party's feet to the fire, right? Like they're not just going to be like, oh, you want a continuance? Oh, sure, whatever. We're just a continuance court here. Like judges will be like, all right, why do you want a continuance? What's the reason? Is this a good reason? And they'll grant it or they won't grant it. Many times they do. You'll always get the first one. Most judges will grant that. But actually, federal court's a whole nother animal. I'm talking state court here.
Why is the federal court different?
Federal court is way more strict. They are like, it's just federal court deadlines are hard deadlines for the most part. And if the parties don't make the deadlines and, they're not able and they ask for a continuance, they better have a damn good reason. Whereas state court, it's a lot more lax. It's a lot more in state court. For instance, much of state court is in the county. It's to the county. So like, for instance, I clerked for a judge in Montgomery County and we'd see the same. My judge knew half of the attorneys pretty well that would be before his court. He knew that they were, good, competent attorneys, whatever, and he wouldn't really, if he'd known the guy, say he knows the one attorney for 20 years and he asked for a continuance, my judge isn't going to give him a hard time. He's going to say you can have a continuance, whatever. And not that federal judges don't know the attorneys like that, but it's just different. It's just it's a different animal. It's a different beast.
They need a higher burden of proof to be able to grant things. It's much more stringent, you're saying?
Yeah, it's much more stringent. It's
okay.
much more stringent.
There was a case I was going to ask you about, but then you introduced the federal versus state thing, so I'm going to go to a second case first. So remind me, I'm going to come back to it first. Fetty Wap.
Oh, shit, yeah. He just got charged for I don't know.
No, he didn't just get charged. This was almost a year ago now. This is like,
did he just?
I want to say
he got sentenced, right?
No, unless I have. Hold on, let me Google that.
No, something happened in like the last week or something.
Hold on. You've seen something in the last week on this?
Fetty Wap's name has been in the news in the last 2 weeks regarding something like related to the courts.
Oh wow! Look, yeah, and this wasn't even on the Google main page. I didn't hear about this. Hold on. Breaking news. Now I'm still going to ask you the same question, but let's see the details here before I ask.
See, I know.
So Fetty Wap pleads guilty to federal drug charges in New York. Now he was arrested, I believe, like last October or something like that. It's been a long time. I'm going to get to why I was going to ask about this. But rapper Fetty Wap admitted his role in an interstate multi-million-dollar drug trafficking scheme Monday, pleading guilty to a charge that carries a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison. The hip-hop star, real name Willie Maxwell, entered the plea to a single one count of conspiracy to possess and distribute 500 grams of cocaine. Okay, all right, hold on a second.
Read that quote.
We're going to get to that. Before Judge Stephen Locke at the federal courthouse in Central Islip on Long Island. I agreed with other people to distribute cocaine, Fetty Wap told the judge. Here's the pictures of some of that.
Damn.
Here's the pictures of the cash. He added that it was at least 500 grams and that some of the conduct occurred in Suffolk County, which he's from New Jersey. Patterson, represent. Suffolk County is not New Jersey, therefore
Long
interstate
Island, right?
federal trafficking. When asked how he'd like to plead, the Trap Queen rapper responded, guilty. The charge carries a maximum sentence of 40 years in prison and a mandatory, hold on, minimum of 5 years for blow? That seems excessive. Anyway, but we're going to talk about that. Locke said at the hearing, no sentencing was immediately scheduled. The plea is standard and the rapper is not cooperating with law enforcement. His attorney, Elizabeth Macedonia, the attorney said that, told reporters in the hallway outside the courtroom. He's not cooperating. I want that to be very, very clear. All right, whoa. All right, hold on. Okay, all right. Now I have 10 questions on this because I was actually complete, and I've been tracking this, and again, this didn't show up on Google's main page, so this was kept very, very quiet.
Are you mad you're out of the Fetty Wap loop?
First of all, I want to be clear. I've never met Fetty Wap. I do not know Fetty Wap. I have not reached inside the network of people I know there to ask a single question.
You're not involved in this cocaine conspiracy.
Of course I'm not involved. Shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? I haven't reached out for inside information on this to people I may know who aren't involved with this specific situation but know him. I've not asked anything.
But you could if you wanted to.
I guess, but like it's not my fucking business. So, okay. He gets arrested. It was roughly 10 months ago, I think, when he gets arrested. He gets arrested at a concert in New York. He was one of, I don't know, 5 arrests of different people, all different places of origin as far as around the country for whatever, where they said that they were distributing all kinds of drugs, including fentanyl, literally. Now, he goes into court, post bail immediately. 4 weeks later, suddenly he's going on every Now, he's got federal charges against him, pending. He's going on every podcast known to man. He's in the studio again working, which apparently was a problem before that. It wasn't happening of recent. There's an announcement that said maybe 3-4 weeks after the initial arrest where the prosecution and his defense attorneys had agreed to a hold period. I don't know if this is a continuance. I don't know what the term was, but a hold period that the judge then approved to say that they were going to be negotiating on a plea. Now, again, this involved fentanyl. This involved potentially, allegedly, some serious shit. He didn't plead guilty to any of that. And the person with the quote, and again, I know nothing here, but the person with the quote in that article.
I thought it was from his lawyer, right?
That's his lawyer.
Yeah.
And going out of her way to say, I want to be very, very clear. He's not cooperating. You're telling me he's not cooperating when they came to a deal between the federal prosecutors and the defense to put a hold on the whole fucking trial where he is the headliner, he's the big name, he's the rapper, and it involves fentanyl and everything, and he only pleads to coke, which I can't even believe that's 5 years of prison for 500 grams of coke.
Dorey, are you putting dry snitching allegations on Fetty Wap right now?
I'm not putting any dry. I don't know Fetty Wap. I do not know the Willie Maxwell. I have nothing good or bad to say about him. I am asking the question: does something like that happen without there being some sort of? Maybe it's not from him. Maybe it's from other people. If there's some sort of, maybe he got other people to say, "Hey, by the way, Fetty Wap had nothing to do with no fentanyl. Like we were dealing with some blow."
I'm sure that happens. I mean, I'm sure that happens because think about it. Just think about that logically, right? Fetty Wap probably got caught up with a bunch of people who are not famous, like rappers, not famous household name rappers, right?
None of them were, yeah.
Right? So they're probably his friends, though, and they probably have some loyalty to Fetty Wap, and they probably know that, all right, if I show loyalty to Fetty Wap now, then when I get out, he's going to reward me. A, I'm just thinking about it logically. B, lawyers have a duty to be they have a duty of candor. Granted, this was statements to the media. I don't know if it was a statement in court, but I don't think she's gonna openly just lie about something like that. And then also, it's not like Fetty Wap got like a sweetheart deal. He got like a pretty serious sentence, and it's like, and all of these things are like, you know, the government has to prove this shit, and the government takes like. It's hard to prove shit. Things go wrong at trial all the time, especially when you have a guy with money and resources like Fetty Wap. They can hire attorneys. They can do a lot, right?
I don't know. I don't know anything. I'm questioning how much money he has. I'm gonna tell you that straight up.
You think that he has more or less than
less? because, and that's
Why
a
would
whole
he be
separate story with the music
trafficking
industry.
cocaine?
No, well, that's what I'm saying. That's a whole separate story what the music industry did to that guy. It's really disgusting what they did. But I mean, he spent
Let's
a lot
talk
of money.
about it. Let's talk about it, man. We're on a podcast, bro.
I mean, some of that I'd have to think about what I'd be comfortable saying publicly. I never like to risk betraying confidences, so I'll keep it very broad. But you know, we all know Fetty Wap was the biggest thing in 2015 when he came up. He started. It was unreal.
Yeah, Trap Queen dropped, and then it was just like, and then it was 6, 7, 9, and then
Mine Again.
Yeah, then like, what was that song with Drake? Baby, won't you
Come my way, where they took Monty off it for the second single.
Put my mind to this shit.
Yeah. He's like, baby, won't you come my way? Yeah, like he was.
Yo, sorry to
Go ahead. No.
Yo, let's talk about the Monty chain smokers. Yo, Google that, bro. You know it was like I'm like, damn, she's fine when she'll be mine. Or no, wait, it was like, baby, won't you come?
It was like, baby, won't you see? Is it money or it's me?
Baby,
right?
Won't you see? I think there was there was a lawsuit and they cut Monty a check.
Did the Chainsmokers? This is from 6 years ago on Reddit. On Reddit, did the Chainsmokers plagiarize Fetty Wap's 679 melody? I'm genuinely curious.
I think he got like a check for like.
Oh shit! Yo, I know the song. I'm looking at this. I know the song Closer.
Yeah,
of course,
like,
we all know the song
Baby,
679. Was there a check cut on that? I know nothing about this. Hold on a minute. Because that's Halsey and the Chainsmokers. That's a good song, Closer. I can't play them because they're both copyright.
No, I could be tripping. I thought that like they cut a small check to Monty for that.
Hold on. Monty Chainsmokers
Search
settlement.
Yeah. Maybe not.
I wonder.
Maybe not.
I never heard Monty talk about that. I wonder if that's something he should.
Well, he
look
should
at.
get a check because think it was like they say, "Baby, won't you be my mountain something?" I'm like, yeah, and then it was like, "Baby, hold me closer in the backseat on my Rover."
Oh my god!
No, and like it was when they came out. It was like the one was like summer of 2015. The one was summer of like 2016. So it was like right after.
Holy fuck! I never thought. I gotta look at that afterwards.
No, I could have sworn there was something. Maybe they even just cleared the sample. Maybe they even like paid him up front for it. I don't know, but there's something there because everyone.
It could be. Yeah, I gotta look at that after. I don't know
Baby,
anything about
won't
that.
you?
But I can't get. I know both hooks in my head right now. It's the same shit. It's scary.
Same cadence, like same like.
And it's weird but that one's a big song. There's no excuse for that one. That one was a top 10 song.
Yes.
You know, there's some where like, you know, people were. I know Dua Lipa got hit with a couple ridiculous lawsuits that she's probably gonna have to pay like a little bit of money on for like. What's it? Levitated? I'm bad with song names. No. Is that what it's called? Is it Levitated or Levitate?
She's got, I think it's like, I'm levitating.
Is it Levitate?
Levitating? I know that song you're talking
Levitated.
about. Something
Levitating. Yeah, I fucked that up in my head. But like, when you look at the rhythm of that, there's some reggae song by some no names that happened like 10 years ago that has like a similar beat style to it. So they're claiming it. But that's the thing. Music has been around recording now for like a century. There's limited notes, man. You know, as far as like recording artists in studios and shit. Like there's limited notes. So it's very easy to accidentally make something that maybe one time was made. And it's somewhat compelling when you listen to it, but at the same time, like fuck off. But those are two top 10 songs made concurrently. There's no excuse there.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's whatever. But I'm Team Monty on that one.
You want to
cut him the check.
You want to know some
Chainsmokers. Cut him the check.
Some of the deets on that. Yeah. So I'd love to do a pod, actually with Monty, to talk about that because Monty's he's a good guy, and he got fucked as a part of it, but the very broad high level, without going into some things I'm not sure, what's fair play, but when WAP came up, Monty and M80, who's a guy no one's ever heard of, but
he's a producer.
No.
M80?
M80 was not a producer. They're on Fetty Wap's original album, 2015, called Fetty Wap, right? Fetty Wap didn't have any features on there except Monty, who was on 10 of the songs, and M80, who was on one of the songs. He did not go outside. He said, I'm sticking with my boys here. Monty and M80 were both coming up. They kind of brought Fetty along with them. I think he might have been like a year younger than them too. M80, by the way, great dude. One of the most talented motherfuckers I've ever talked to.
I think there might be a producer by the name of M80 also.
I don't know, but this is not
probably,
him.
Yeah.
One of the really real dude, great guys, friends with my friend Luke Servino, who's friends with all these guys. He's worked with Monty and everything. And basically, they started making these songs. It started with them finding this Norwegian producer's beat. That was the breakthrough. It was Trap Queen. And WAP's like, oh, that's shit.
So dope.
And he was studying it, and he's like, oh, my God, this is it. And then they started making songs. Like My Way, they made one night while there were like 6 songs they made. And what happened was Monty took the tape to the car afterwards and he sticks it in, and they had a couple females in the back seat, and they're playing like the 6 songs they just recorded. They're bobbing their heads to a bunch, and then the My Way one comes on, and you see the chicks going, come on, like on the first listen by the second chorus, and they're looking at each other like, oh shit, like they're bumping it, the shit's gonna go.
Yo, that's how it happens, man.
That's how it happens. So they have this come up. They were the biggest, people forget this, it wasn't that long ago, they were the biggest thing on planet Earth. They were lovable. Fetty Wap with the whole one eye thing, like lovable guy.
Fetty Wap, like, I'll stop you there.
Yeah.
Was so like embraced. Everyone just was like, yo, he's such a nice guy. Like, I love him. He's like the best. He's like so wholesome. And I like, all right, whatever. Maybe some things in the news have happened, but like I still get that vibe from him. And he was that like humble, just like nice guy when he came out. I don't know. I just wanted to reiterate that. Like,
no, I think it's a fair. Again, I've never met him. I don't know. I only know what I hear from other people who know him. Whatever. So really take that for what you will. My vibe I get is that, we all see these stories of people who come up and fall off, and maybe sometimes it's their fault, sometimes it's not their fault, sometimes it's both, and I think it can come in waves. But with him, he proved it with his first platinum album, which was the biggest album on earth.
What was the name?
It's called Fetty Wap.
Yeah,
it's called Fetty Wap.
Yeah.
It's called the same name. They do that sometimes. Like Dua Lipa's first album was called Dua Lipa.
Many
right?
artists for decades.
He went against the music industry, who were like, oh, let's put this artist on it. Let's put that feature on. He said, no, fuck that. Me, Monty, and M80, he'll be on a song too. That's it. And made it platinum. But he had a management company. They all did. Because we talk about the Young Thug thing where we talk about people in the studio just around, they're from your neighborhood. Same deal here, except these guys had some money, right? These were the guys, when they were coming up and they had nothing and they were making these songs, these guys had money. And what was the, oh my God, I'm hitting some fucking blanks right now. What was the name of that? Oh, RGF, duh. Remember? RGF Island was a song, like RGF Productions.
Yeah.
It's RGF Management, right? So
1738.
Yeah. I'm just making sure. So without alleging details here, put it this way. They're not with RGF. They haven't been with RGF for a long time.
What did RGF stand for?
They got some, it was, I forget. I used to know that, but I'll look it up later. They got signed by, what was it? It was, what's his face? Leor Cohen, 300 Entertainment, right? So Leor Cohen, who a lot of people in the music industry is powerful, people don't like him. I don't know of him. I never dealt with him, but I think he's the head of YouTube Music now. But he has 300 Entertainment after he got canned from Warner Brothers Music, where my guy was right before. Yeah, that whole thing. But once he gets canned there, he opens up 300 Entertainment with a couple of the executives who also got canned with him. They signed all kind of artists. Fetty Wap was one of their first, right? When he was coming up, they got him. They made all their money on him. And what they told him was, get rid of everyone around you. They're gone. Now, by the way, some of this, forget who they are and what they're saying and why they're saying it. Some of this actually was good advice. But that's a lot. You know, you bring someone on who's just coming up and you're like, get rid of everyone around you. And he's like, well, wait, hold on a minute.
It's just not practical.
It's not practical. Yeah. So what they did is they said, oh, yeah, go fuck yourself. And so they made all the money on him up front. He had one of the biggest years in music history in 2015 ever. Like, he was incredible. Everything he did was a hit, banger, whatever. And then they pulled resources from him. And then they didn't follow, apparently they didn't follow through on some deals with some of the other guys. And slowly he got less and less action. Even when, like, there were a few songs he dropped in the years after that that were bangers. Like, there's a couple I'm thinking of that were like, whoa. Didn't get the action they needed behind them. And so they kept losing more and more money. And 300 kept putting him down towards the bottom of the stack. I think he still may be with 300. But, you know, and I'm not speaking for him now, but it is knowing the details that I was told by not just Monty, but a bunch of people around the situation who I was able to talk to through Luke Servino, who knows all these guys very well and has worked with them. Like, it's fucked up. They are the ultimate story of the stereotype story of what happens in the music business when people get fucked.
Yeah. I have one, like, pushback on that.
Go, please, yeah.
I love Fetty Wap. I like that summer everyone was bumping Fetty Wap. That was, I remember when I graduated, because that was like Trap Queen came out when it was like I was graduating college, right? So like I think it came out like maybe the end of 2014. I don't know when it came out, but definitely 2015, like graduation, everyone was like Trap Queen.
That's when it was hitting the skids.
Do you think Fetty Wap has a unique style, right? Mm-hmm. Unique. Yeah. You cannot mistake Fetty Wap for any other artist ever, yes. Right? Do you think that got a little bit, the people, once we got used to that, it didn't have as much effect?
No. Here's why I say no. He is unique. He's got a very, like, his hero is like Gucci Mane or something. Again, I don't know whether or not that's true.
The WAP came from that, right?
I believe part of the name came from
Gucci Mane is known as Guwap. And I've read Gucci Mane's autobiography, although he didn't write it himself. But Gucci Mane got his name from his father, who was called Guwap. Fun fact. Okay. Fun fact. It says it in the first 5 pages of his autobiography.
I know I've mentioned this on previous podcasts with you, but for people who haven't heard your previous episodes from the early days, you are one of the most educated hip-hop heads, if not the most educated hip-hop head I have ever met in my life. So when you're talking about the legality of like cases that happen to involve hip-hop people now, you also like know all the details.
I'm not just
of
like
all the
some
other
guy.
shit.
Yeah, I do want to clarify. I'm not just some guy like Pooh Shiesty. Like I'm like I like Pooh Shiesty. Like I listen to him.
Free Pooh. Anyway, but
Free Shiesty, yeah.
But you look at it. Yes, there was some influence on that, and I agree with what you're saying in the sense that you always look at some sort of new way of doing something and you wonder if it's just a passing fad. However, with him, I don't think that's what it is. In my opinion, and this is just my water cooler opinion, evaluating the facts, and when I've talked with them and watched some things that happen and kind of trying to pull it away, they made perfect songs when they were just on the come up, desperate to create, which is a beautiful thing. And I remember when Monty told me like the My Way story that I just told a few minutes ago, in my head I'm thinking, look at how organic that was. They weren't trying to make a hit. They were just in there recording song after song, and one of them, boom, electric, it hit, right? What happened afterwards is as time went on and they got less and less resources and were getting more and more fucked, and they didn't realize they were getting fucked right away, they started trying to create for a hit. I have seen this in person in the studio. I have watched Monty, who has a ton of talent and is somebody who I really like that guy. He's a great dude. He's been great to me. And again, got really, really fucked. But I have watched him go to make songs, and this is my opinion here. He didn't say this, but this is my take, where he's making what he thinks people want to hear for a hit instead of the other one where I'm sitting there, you know, my fucking opinion doesn't mean anything, but in my head I'm going, that's the one right there, and he's not making that. And so that is what also happened with WAP. And so he still has that unique voice and whatever, but when I listen to his music, it doesn't have that edge to it. It doesn't have that just fucking trying new shit and feeling it. Like, listen to RGF Island, which ended up being at some point, I think it was like even a top 60 song that year. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't top 10, but like,
I know that
he's
song,
just
RGF
fucking
Island.
going with it, bro. Like, there's no precedent for that song, and if you're a fan, you listen to that, you're like, oh shit, I'm in on this right now, you know. And they got away from that, and I feel bad because I think that he felt, oh, I gotta make money, I'm responsible for everyone around me, like. And again, I was never around him, but this is just the vibe I got. And now when you see something like this happen, I'm like, makes sense,
dude. I will say this, man. The Fetty Wap and also Monty, but like Fetty Wap, obviously the main, you know, he was the main star, I guess, of that group. The Fetty Wap reign just felt like it was over too short, man. It just felt like I don't care who you are, and like I said, like, oh, did we get tired of it? But like I think everyone at one point was pretty much everyone like our age was a Fetty Wap fan, especially like from this area. Like, I mean, you know, I'm Philly, but like we still got love for like Jersey and shit. But like it just felt, shout out Jersey.
Shout out Jersey, baby.
I felt like it was just over too soon. It was just like, all right, Fetty Wap's here. He came out with like all these bangers that were like the anthem of that summer. Like I have fucking like crazy memories to some of those songs. Like that was a fun ass summer, and like I associate it with like Fetty Wap songs,
music,
and some stories that like
memories.
We could say off the air, but like it was just like it was over too soon, man.
They went and did a worldwide tour. It was the most anticipated tour at the time globally in music in 2016. And that was their peak because they got to play all the songs that made people's memories in 2015 for everyone around the whole country. And I believe they went to Europe and all that. At the same time that was happening, there was an act that their team agreed to have as the opener for the tour, who was an up-and-coming artist. And these guys, they're really like, fuck it, yeah, sounds good. Like, you think he's good? Cool, let's go. And so at the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 stops they had on the tour, the opener would go on and he'd play 4 songs. And by the 3rd song, he was getting booed off the stage. He was a kid, he was young, he was coming up, had some things to figure out, just like performing for the first time. I think he was like 20 years old.
Sure.
But Monty went to him after whatever it was, the 3rd or 4th stop, and he goes, listen, that first song you play, all the women lose their fucking mind. It's nuts. And like, I can see it, and that's what's gonna get the response. So he goes, I want you to play that 1st and 4th. And the kid's like, are you sure? Like, I don't know. I'm playing the same song twice. He's like, just trust me, just do it. So then he starts playing it 1st and 4th. Now, when WAP and Monty are coming on the stage, they're getting a standing ovation the whole way. And they love this kid. He was from a totally different background, completely different life circumstances, had a different musical style, but they really, really liked him. And they'd hang out with him on the tour buses in between stops and whatever, and to this day admire him. And the crazy thing is that kid was named Post Malone, and that song was White Iverson. And the next fucking thing that happened is his album comes out, and that album ended up being the #1 album, I think, in the world for a time. And that song was already going to catapult him, but the confidence that he got from being able to play during that vibe, that is how strong Fetty Wap and Monty and the Remy Boys were at this time. They could sit in there and see the talent in this kid and say, hey, we just go out there and do what we do. They weren't thinking about anything. They just played, and people lost their fucking minds because the songs were insane because there was no effort to it. And they're like, you just got to do that too, and you're even going to do it with 1 song. And then that dude records all these other songs that he puts into an album, and the first one comes out. Was the first one Beer Bongs and Bentleys, or was that the second? The first one was Stoney. So the first, this whole time, Post is recording Stoney on there. That's the album. And boom, the rest is history. And so I always think about that, and like Post and M80 had a good relationship because M80 had a lot of range like Post did. And I'm always like, the ride that having the high and the lack of effort and the confidence that can come with that when you're up there allows you to just create and do and be loose and whatever. And then fast forward 4 years later, after all this bullshit behind the scenes that no one knows about, I'm watching Monty in the studio stressing over which one to make, and in my opinion, he's making the wrong one because he's trying to do what people want because they fucked him into this position where that's what he's got to do. It takes away the entire thing that built them in the first place. And I have a lot of empathy for that because the expectations were so high and people don't understand all the bullshit that has to go into actually making these things get to the mainstream. They don't understand that Taylor Swift is putting $50 to $80 million behind marketing on one album. At the beginning, outset, radio marketing.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They don't understand what goes into this. Like, we're going to watch it now with Meek Mill. Meek Mill, I want to find out what happened here. I don't know. Brian McMonagle didn't know it happened right when he was in here shortly before, but like Meek Mill left Roc Nation, which was very shocking. Now he's releasing, I guess, like independent. We're going to see how much money he puts behind that and how well that music's able to do, not on the merits of how good it is, but how much it can reach based on the money that they put.
Is there bad blood between him and Roc Nation?
It doesn't sound like that. I will say that. It doesn't sound like that at all.
Yeah.
They were together July 4th at Ruben's party, having a good time when this had clearly happened.
Look, Jay-Z's, are you talking about Jay-Z and okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jay-Z's a billionaire, man. Like, he doesn't, like, at this point, to me, it seems like he's just trying to like help and just like mentor other artists. You know what I mean? Whether like, and I think it's you're in a good spot if you're signed to Jay-Z's label, but I don't think Jay-Z's losing any sleep over anyone leaving his label. You know what I'm saying? I think he's like, he's done he's done what he's needed to do. But yeah, man, Meek Mill has not released an album in a long time. He's due. He's giving out. He'll give you these singles, like I've heard some snippets, man. The snippets are fire.
They look good.
Give me the album. Yeah,
they look good. I think that's another thing. Like his whole thing, he released Champions shortly after coming out of prison when the whole thing. I'm thinking,
is that his last album? Is that his last album? Did he have a?
Let's check it.
That's his last album.
That was the end of 2018.
That's because that was the year after he got out. Man. I'm gonna get fired up about Meek Mill right now.
No, he released Expensive Pain in 2021, but it wasn't.
Oh yeah, it was. No, yeah. That was good. But
it wasn't. It had
that
work.
song. What was that song with Lil Durk on it?
Oh, dude, that's a banger. That's with Lil Durk and Lil Baby.
Yeah. What's it called? I think it's is it change something locations something?
Sharing locations.
Sharing locations. Yeah,
that's right.
Love that song.
I think James Harden was in the booth for that.
Sure.
One. Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna be curious to see what happens. Some of the shit he's been releasing, like little snippets, looks fucking fire.
Why does like a Lil Baby give James Harden like money for his birthday? I just don't get that.
That wasn't Lil Baby giving that money. Come on now.
Like
you don't know what that was?
What is that? I don't know. It's just for like the gram, just like to.
No. You do realize
it's just for the strip club, like
our Sixers now have the best setup ever. You do realize that, right?
Yes.
Michael Rubin, who is before he was a small owner in the group.
Oh, you're on some conspiracy.
No, this is very simple. It's very straightforward.
All right.
Who's an awesome. I fucking love Michael Rubin. I love his grind. He built everything himself. The guy's amazing.
But he had to sell his stake. Yes, because he's got a private business. Yes, I understand that.
So he had to sell his whatever it was 7-8% stake in the Sixers. Who before he's an owner, he is a lifelong diehard fan of the team.
Sure.
Friends with everyone on the team. None of that changes. He's now invested in sports gambling and some NFT rights, I believe, like digital assets for players. So it would be in violation of the Board of Governors agreement for him to remain an owner. So perfectly handled everything beautifully.
Yeah.
He's out. He's still the biggest fan ever. He's worth $7-8 billion now. I would put the money 10 years from now for Michael Rubin to be the richest American. I'll put my bet on that. He now gets to tamper for free. No one can stop him. He is friends with every big player in the NBA. And so James Harden takes a deal where he cuts his pay so that the Sixers can afford to sign PJ over the summer. And now suddenly Lil Baby's giving $250K in cash on video to James. Come on.
Well,
come on.
I don't know how Lil Baby factors in there.
Because he's one of Ruben's best friends. And Ruben goes, listen, I'm going to give you something. You can give James this for his present. Here you go. Just a little starter.
I don't know. I am kind of seeing your conspiracy theory there, and this is a minor conspiracy theory, but it's a conspiracy theory.
James
based
Harden,
on no hard evidence. Dorey.
James Harden launched his wine company a few weeks ago. I guarantee you, Michael Rubin ordered 1,600 bottles the first day.
Probably, you're probably right. But I do see there. I'm like, oh shit! Like, yeah, he's just like a billionaire who can just do what he wants now because he's not affiliated with any team formally. That's awesome.
That's fucking great.
Yeah.
And it's no coincidence that the NBA filed a tampering investigation against the Sixers right when he left, just as like a goddamn it, well, we got to hit him on the way out the door. Because now he can do whatever he wants to do. They can't stop him. He can literally send out a tweet standing next to LeBron James in a picture and be like, please sign with the Sixers. And you can't do fuck all about it. And he's got billions of dollars in his pocket. And if he wants to pay LeBron James $50 million or throw some money towards his charity for $50 million and say, hey, remember that when free agency comes up next year. I think he just signed a contract. But remember that when you're demanding a fucking trade next year and we're going to draft Bronny or something like that. He can do it.
Yo, what if we drafted Bronny? LeBron would have to come. Because that's
He already said it.
Yeah, that's his goal. He's going to play with his son.
Be kind of cool.
That would be cool.
Be very cool.
Damn.
Right?
I have high hope for the Sixers, man.
I do too. I think we had to get rid of that metastasized cancer of an individual. We did. And I think...
I don't think he's going to... You think he's going to play? You think he's going to play another NBA game? I've had this conversation.
I don't care.
Yeah, why are we even wasting our breath?
I think... Listen, man, I don't know what happens behind the scenes. I'm very not judgmental of professional athletes and stuff. We don't always know the details.
You're right.
But
you're right.
Fuck that guy. And I'll say his name, Ben Simmons. Let's call it what it is. In my opinion, if I end up being wrong and it's provable that I'm wrong in the future, my apology will be louder than what I say or have said in the past. But when you go and fraudulently use a loophole of a mental health clause in the NBA PA, which was put there for people who legitimately go through serious mental crises to be able to use as not an excuse, as a viable reason to not be able to perform the duties of their contract and still get paid. When you go and do that strictly because you're too fucking scared to play, fuck you. That is one of the lowest things you can do. He is a me first guy. He doesn't give a fuck about anyone else. Just look what he did to his second team when he refused to fucking play in the postseason. Wants to go and got
the group chat.
Dude, I don't even want to hear it.
My thing is, do we think that Ben Simmons is right mentally, though? Like, what is evidence supporting that? Because when he played with us, he obviously just couldn't perform under pressure. He just could not perform in the playoffs or any pressure situation. He never seemed like he was, that was always the question mark. It was like it wasn't even the fact that Ben Simmons wasn't a good 3-point shooter. It was that he had like some mental block against shooting 3-pointers, right? Like he couldn't even bring himself to do it. It seems to me like he probably isn't right mentally. He probably isn't like...
There's a huge difference between being a head case with the yips and having a mental health crisis and trying to blame... Like he wasn't... If that was the case, he would have gone and said, my mental health problem is that I have the fucking yips and I don't have the confidence to play on an NBA floor, which, by the way, could then be an issue in his argument there. But that is not, when you associate that with someone who is an By the way, not to say he hasn't gone through shit off the court. I do know for a fact it's been reported. There's one thing in particularly I'm thinking about that was very heavy that he dealt with. It's a really disgusting situation. I don't even want to bring light to it, but it was bad, right?
I'm not familiar with that, but whatever.
It had to do with his sister and his brother. So you can do the math there. But yes, he did have something like that happen. And for a while, that was something that I took into account. But when you look at the actions, mental health was never a fucking problem until suddenly he realized, oh, they're not going to pay me. Then he said, I have a mental health problem. And then he refused to see the mental health professionals that the Sixers had with him. It was like pulling teeth to get him in there.
And Rich Paul got him.
Such a fraud, bro.
Yeah.
Such a fucking fraud.
But you look at a guy who's not making decisions that benefit himself. If we really look at it, it's a guy who left a franchise like under disgrace terms with like basically the lowest value he could have, right? He performed horrible in his last playoff game, like performed horrible, like left a awful taste in the people's mouths. Didn't play at all last season and didn't refuse to play for Brooklyn. Like, granted, the whole thing that like it was game 4. Who were they playing? Celtics?
Celtics.
Yeah, it was game 4 against the Celtics, and they're like, or texting a group chat, you gonna play, Ben? Like, what the fuck is that? Like, you can't just put someone in game 4 of a playoff like situation. Like, I don't think in any scenario you just like, all right, Ben, here's your first game that you.
He was supposed to look at playing game 3. The reports have been out. They kept pushing it back weeks and weeks.
I know, but like
playing
game in the playoffs though, like.
Yeah, and to be fair, Rick Bucher reported that. He stands by the report. He was very angry at some of the shit that came out. Shams Charania tried to say that never happened. Who's another... Is that how you say his name? Shams Charania? I've always read it on Twitter. I don't know how to pronounce it right. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But the other thing is, Shams is in the pocket of Clutch. Like, you look at his report. Like, and I'm not even blaming him. Like, that's a main source for him. So he goes with what they say. So, look, I'm not really sure what to believe on that one. But either way... The slippery slope of suddenly saying it's okay for a professional athlete to be like, oh, I can't handle the pressure. I'm having a mental health crisis. I'm going to take off work and you still have to pay me. That doesn't work, bro. It doesn't. Life is not, that doesn't work like that. That is not having, like, if you look at what's happening to Gabby Hanna right now online, that is a mental health crisis. She is having and I mean this, I'm not saying this as an exaggeration, she's having a manic, psychotic episode. Something went seriously wrong. I don't know if it's substance related. I have no idea. But something is very, very wrong. From a human being perspective, I look at that and I go, oh my God, like, let's get her help. That is the type of thing that Ben Simmons is alleging. But all the while, he's dating his girl, throwing house parties at his house, having a good fucking time, playing pickup down at the Fittler Club in Philly, watching the games allegedly. And none of this was a problem until suddenly they wouldn't pay you. But he even, once they started not paying him, he even showed up to Philly when he said he wasn't gonna. And then he claimed all this stuff. And then he gets to Brooklyn.
Going to the videos of him just like at practice, but like.
Come on, bro. And then, he gets traded to Brooklyn and he can do the press conference day 1. No problem. Face the media. I'm having a mental health crisis. But by the way, let me answer all questions. No problem. Ben 10, let's start. There's something about someone taking advantage of people with legitimate mental health issues that will never fucking sit right with me.
I agree with that. But yeah, I mean, Ben's like, look, I'll be honest. If you're rooting against Ben Simmons, like I think you're gonna have a good time because I don't think he's done anything to benefit himself or his career in the past year plus. So like, I don't think we're going to see much of him anymore. I think he's just going to kind of fade out. I think he's kind of absolutely tarnished his image. I think he's tarnished his reputation. He's already proved that he's a head case, right? Like it's hard enough for him to like even shoot a jump shot, right? Like he's not going to like he's going to come out and be better, a new animal, work hard. I just don't see that. Like I don't see that from Ben Simmons. So I think the best is behind him.
The problem with him is that he is terrified of failing at anything. He is unwilling to try. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think I actually said it right for the first time there. He is not a natural shooter. That motherfucker shoots.
Yeah, he shoots.
He keeps going, baby. And now he can actually shoot a little bit, right? And he's a
That's
guy.
what happens, man. And that's what happens in life, man. You just start trying something enough, you get kind of okay at it.
Exactly.
You don't get, he's not going to win the 3-point contest, but, he's,
MVP of the league, baby.
Yeah, you're
champion.
You can't leave him unguarded on the 3-point line.
Right. And so Ben doesn't have that upstairs. And I don't know that he'll, like, he doesn't have that it. And the biggest thing, and I paid attention to this, I don't know why people don't talk about this all the time. He signed with Clutch Sports right in college before he was the #1 pick. LeBron James used to talk about him all the time.
Yeah,
Young King, remember that?
Yeah, he
Fresh
was the
Prince.
mentor to him. Yeah.
You know the last time LeBron James mentioned him in a post? I think it was All-Star Weekend 2020 when he was required to because all the Clutch guys took a picture at All-Star Weekend. After 2018, it used to be all the time. Stories, posts, died down. Because, and LeBron's not going to say this, and that's perfectly fine. I understand that. But, kid don't got it. Kid, he's like this guy. He used to say early on, this guy has the ability to be the next great one, the guy who can do it all. He don't got it, though. It's not up here. He don't want it. LeBron, look, a lot of people give criticism to LeBron compared to Jordan, all that. LeBron did want it. LeBron works his fucking ass off.
No, LeBron, yes. LeBron has a
Might be the greatest to ever play.
Champion mindset. Yes, that's certainly a debate.
Yep.
But it's absolutely like a respectable opinion to say LeBron's the greatest basketball player of all time.
Sure. And that's not, Ben doesn't have that making. And the saddest part is Ben Simmons, when you take into account physical assets and on-court abilities from a raw perspective coming up into the league at age 19, could be the most talented person I've ever seen.
You're not wrong.
There was no reason why he shouldn't be a top 5 player to ever play the game. He'll never be a top 25 player in the league because he doesn't have it.
I think he was a top 25 player.
There was a point where I could argue he was 23rd, 24th, 25th. Sure.
Yeah, he won't be again, though. That's for damn sure.
That's what you say, and I think you might be right about that.
Yeah, I just think it's facts. I just don't see him. What's he going to come out next year and just be like, I've been training hard, working hard, like new Ben Simmons. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. The case a while back, there were 2 cases I was mentioning. We got into the Fetty Wap thing, though.
Yeah.
The other case that I tabled for a minute was the Henry Ruggs case. And the context was, I tabled it because that was a state case that's in Vegas. He's the Raiders wide receiver who...
Drunk drove, yeah.
On video, BAC, everything. Drove a car 125 miles. No, it was 156, I think, miles per hour.
Yeah, crazy.
On the Vegas freeway.
It's like a Corvette, right?
Yeah, whatever it was some sports car. Last October, killed a poor girl. I mean, he burned her like a bonfire in a car. It was horrible. It's all on video. Again, they took his blood alcohol content at the scene. His lawyers keep delaying this case and fighting and losing on evidence to be allowed in there. And we are now almost a year out from when he committed the most obvious crime ever. And it's still not set for a trial date.
How does it set for a trial date?
Yeah, I believe. Let me double check that. It wasn't like a month ago. Henry Ruggs trial date. Let's check that. Nope. No trial date. They made the last significant ruling where they have to allow the BAC on July 12th, but no trial date. And this is, again, video of his car driving, video of him sitting at the scene afterwards with the car burning in the background, evidence of the autopsy that proves that this girl and her dog were burned to death. They weren't dead when the fire started. It's one of the worst causes of death ever. And you have his blood out. I forget what it was, but it was high. His blood alcohol content was taken at the scene by the cops. It was high as fuck. How is he not on trial yet?
I mean, excuse me. I mean, I don't know that you can definitively say, okay, he needs to be on trial in X amount period of time. Like we talked about this a little earlier. We said you can waive certain rights, you can move to continue certain times. Yeah, it seems like the way you presented it, it seems like a pretty open and shut case, and I'm sure it is. And I'm sure some of that is like deliberate postponement. I don't want to say, I'm hesitant to say like deliberate, just like delaying, because that's kind of not a good thing to just delay cases, and that's frowned upon, and as far as lawyers and courts and stuff. But yeah, I mean, that case is a pretty sad case. I mean, he was very under the influence, killed someone, and the outcome at trial is not going to be favorable to him. He's going to spend some time in jail. I think there's no way around that. So yeah, I mean, he's at this point, he has as much incentive. He's probably paying his lawyers by the hour, and he's just like, all right, fight this, fight that. And the lawyers they'll do it, and they'll advise him. I'm sure like a competent lawyer will advise him and say, look, I don't think we have a good chance of winning this. I can fight this. I can argue this. I can do this. And he's probably, maybe he has some of that NFL money still, and he's saying, fight this, do this. It's a shame. I mean, it's it's a shame that the young lady lost her life.
It's so sad, man.
Yeah,
it's so sad. Yeah, and it's like, it's a huge mistake that he had no previous record. He was everyone loved him, great guy, made an awful decision. And the craziest part is he makes the awful decision. But if you look at the facts of the case, if he had even been driving at like a not good rate, like speeding 70, I mean, it's a car accident. She's probably fine. And he actually probably will do like a month in jail or something. But he might even play that season after an 8-game suspension or something. Not to excuse any of that. But
you think he'll play?
No. I'm saying if that happened.
Dante Stallworth did the same shit.
No, Dante Stallworth did not.
Well,
Dante Stallworth.
That shit happened in Miami. Yeah.
People get mad at the fact, he only spent 30 days in jail. And if I were the victim's family, I might feel the same way. Do you know that Dante Stallworth slept overnight somewhere and then drove home in the morning and happened to be still slightly under the influence?
Yeah, and I know exactly the road that because
in Miami.
It was on MacArthur Causeway, which is a road. You must be crazy if you're walking on that road. I rode my bike on that one because there's a bike lane there. I rode my bike there once, and I was like, it was like so sketchy. And I don't think it was a hit and run too. He stopped and rendered aid and did all that stuff. He did kill someone though. It was unfortunate, and he was under the influence when he did it.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah,
I don't think that's one a lot of people thought about. But he was, again, another guy, 0 record, well-loved dude, had all kinds of character witnesses in his favor, and he felt awful about it, feels awful about it to this day. And, he's got to live with that. But holy shit was the intent not there on that. And it wasn't like...
I don't think the intent's there on either. Right?
On any of them, but... The difference is you're making the decision.
It's a lot more like reckless type conduct when you're talking with Riggs,
right,
than you are with Stallworth, man.
Exactly. With his, it's tough. I actually, he killed a guy, but it was hard for me to disagree with the decision because, again, he slept it off. And then, how many times, think about this. Serious question, and anyone out there listening can think about this too. How many times have you partied, slept somewhere, and then in the morning, you're hungover, right? You drive home. I ain't gonna sit here and tell you I haven't done that. I'm pretty sure I've never been legally at the limit when I've done that. But do I know that for a fact of all my life, including high school? I'm not sure.
Yeah, look. That's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
But yeah, I try, so part of the reason I have a job is just because, so many people get in like drunk boating accidents, right? I don't think you'll ever be able to fix that. Like, because like there's just too many variables on that one.
Yeah.
There's just too much. There's just like a road is like, all right, you have a stop sign, you have a like pavement, you have this, you have that. There's no brakes on a boat. There's no like stop signs. It's just like if the water, the waves are different, whatever. Like it's just like, I don't know. It's just something. It's something I've always thought of because it's like pretty much everyone on a boat in Miami has like a beverage, unless you're going fishing.
No, that's
true.
quite literally.
Well,
when
I mean,
that
before
usually
you're
happens.
actually right when you go fishing.
Yeah,
fine.
that's fair.
When you're coming back from fishing, it's different.
And weed's the whole other thing too. Like that's, can you get? Do you see DWI cases of weed with boats?
No, I haven't seen that.
That's the way.
Yeah. Yo, you know what's wild? I have some hot takes on weed.
All right.
Right?
Hit me.
First of all, I'm not against weed at all. I think it should be illegal. I think everyone should do what they want. But
You think it should be legal?
Legal.
Yeah, not
Yes.
illegal. Okay.
I think it should be legal.
Yeah.
For adults of, 21's an arbitrary age. I think it should be 18. Same with booze. But anyway, people always say that it's not like no one's ever died because of weed. That's just not true. If you Google, there's many accidents that happen because people just smoke too much weed, right?
Right.
And people just refuse to accept that, and they're like, "What? No, weed makes you a better driver." It's like, yeah, for some people it does.
For some people,
For some people, yeah, I get it. If you're stoned, you're like 10 and 2, you're on the wheel, you're like super like turn the music down, like super like check both ways 10 times. You stop like 500 feet in front of the stop sign. Like I get that makes you a safe driver, right?
Yes.
I get that. But if you look at the stats, some people definitely, and like especially like younger people, have gotten too high and like gotten in car accidents. Like if you just Google the stats, it's there.
No.
And I'm not
this
saying
is a real thing. Yes.
And I'm not saying like
Yes.
I'm not even saying that you shouldn't even be able to drive like after smoking weed. I'm just saying that you shouldn't say that it hasn't ever happened. That's all I'm saying. That's all my.
That what you just said is a separate conversation from. No one's ever died from weed consumption.
Yes. I just want to get... Actually, I don't have any hot takes on weed.
I don't think that's a hot take at all. I think that's a pretty fair take.
I've been to states where it's legal before. Whatever.
Shout out Colorado.
Yeah, I've been to Colorado on the first day it was legal. You can make whatever you may infer from that information. You can infer.
You didn't break any laws. It's okay.
Whatever, I don't know.
That's one of those things. It's like at this point on a consumption basis, the fact that it's not all 50 states legal is like, it's so stupid. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and I mean, look, it is what it is. But that's the one thing. It's like there should be like people think it's like this. There's downsides to it. There's so many downsides to weed, which I don't like. I hate when I've said this to people before because. People are like, "Oh, weed helps me sleep," and I was like, "If you do the research, and like you can do the research right now, you don't get any REM sleep when you're on weed. You don't get any REM sleep if you look it up.
I don't know that I've ever made this argument personally, so I don't have any attachment to it. But I believe you. I've never looked it up.
It's like so. For one thing, it may help you go to sleep, but you don't get as restful of a sleep. So now you just got to weigh the options. And like I said that to someone, and that person was like, "What are you talking about?" Like just got mad at me. I was like, "Look, I'm just trying to say, like,
does it depend on the cut you use?"
I don't know. I know you don't get REM sleep on it. THC like inhibits REM, and I know that it lowers sperm count for men.
Really?
Weed does. Yes,
I didn't know that.
There's negatives to it, but. I'm not trying to be like
no, I know what
people. I see people in the comments, whatever, getting like
fuck that.
Angry.
Don't worry about it.
I just like to fucking have intelligent conversations and just paint the whole picture, right?
That's why I like talking with you because you're fair. You're fair.
But I think weed should be legal and smoke weed if you want to.
Yes,
and it's not going to harm anything really.
Because you can. I'm not saying those same arguments you just made, but for plenty of things. You can make the negative arguments with perpetual alcohol use.
Yeah, staying up too late's not good for you. You know, I'm just saying, like, yeah, it's, you know what I mean?
That, yeah. Exactly.
I'm not saying, you know, there's anything really that bad.
I wonder if the 8 sleep offsets the weed problems, though. I wonder if when you sleep on an 8 sleep, you get deeper REM, even if you smoked weed.
You gotta do some empirical research on that one.
I'm just saying, Mateo over at 8 Sleep has to take a look at this because he might get a new wave of customers.
Yeah, it's in Colorado especially.
Exactly. We're gonna table that one. But before I get you out of here, you're one of my China guys, looking through China stuff.
Oh,
and
I got one thing I wanted to bring up.
Please go ahead.
Sorry, this is
do it.
All right. Europe energy crisis. Did you hear? You know what's going on with the Europe energy crisis?
Germany and Russia and all that?
And all the gas, the skyrocketing energy price. Did you hear what's happening in France?
No.
They're nationalizing their power companies. Taking that shit.
All right.
Socialism in France.
You
about to fucking happen.
You have my attention.
Yep, it's Google it. It's happening.
What does that have to do with China?
Nothing, but I just, you know, okay. So we're talking socialism, communism.
All right, France nationalization. I still like that you brought this up. Nationalization of it was all energy. You're saying
the power companies, yeah.
Okay. This is from Bloomberg. Good source. Good source on finance matters. Let's see. I wonder if this is written. No, it's not. Okay. France offers big premium in quest for swift EDF nationalization. Investors are offered €12 a share by the government. EDF's problems have exacerbated Europe's energy crisis. So I'm guessing it's because shares are at historic lows or something. The French government offered a premium of more than 50% to minority investors in Électricité de France. I don't know if that's a French accent, but we'll try. Seeking a swift nationalization of the troubled company that is the backbone of the country's energy policy. The €9.7 billion, $9.9 billion offer, which at €12 a share was at the upper end of expectations, is intended to bring the nuclear power generator back into full state ownership as soon as mid-October. This is from July 19, 2022, by the way, allowing the government to push ahead with long-term investments in carbon-free energy. Kevin Gallagher, thoughts?
So right now, they pose it as like, hey, we're doing a business deal. Let's buy these shares from you.
Oui.
Yeah. So, like, I just wonder if that's how it's going to play. What if they're just like, no.
What do you mean, who's like, no?
The energy company, right?
Well, they're talking about the investors here, right? Is this the so when they say minority investors, I don't want to fuck up the terms because maybe I'm thinking about this wrong. But minority investors, are they referring to all like the mom and pop investors who own shares if enough of them agree at a shareholder meeting? I don't know if it works the same in the French stock market though.
I don't know either, but it sounds to me like it just sounds sketchy.
The bottom line is the theme is here. There is a strong, let's say, threat that nuclear energy and I guess energy as a whole, like different companies here, are going to be nationalized, as you said.
Yeah, and that's how communism starts. That's how socialism starts. It's just like the government says, and it's always with the energy companies at first. It's like, oh, let's take just the energy companies, just the oil companies. Let's take that first. And they're not taking it yet. I guess they're offering, but we'll see. I don't know.
Offering.
I thought this was super interesting in a story that I thought went kind of under the radar. I just wanted to bring it up on the pod.
Dude, I've heard. That's why I love you're here. I've never heard of this. This is wild. This is potentially what. But again, little devil's advocate here. France is already somewhat of a socialist country.
There's a difference between socialist and welfare state.
Yes, that's fair.
So all these, when people say like, oh, whatever, like this country's socialist, this country's socialist. No, they're still capitalist. They're just like a welfare state, right? They pay exorbitant taxes. They have exorbitant government benefits.
Right.
But in the end, you can still, you can still open a business, right? A socialist country is the government just controls all the means of productions.
Yeah, this is where the left meets the right. With things when you look at like the far extremes, and I would call that when you go pure social, that's a far extreme.
Yeah.
And it usually devolves into a form of communism.
Yes.
And what happens is when you look at that with then like fascism, great example would be Russia. It ends up being the same thing in a different way, which is so interesting to me because, you know, we try to look at this stuff through certain lenses and then, you know, we're paying attention to one issue based on the label, maybe not paying attention to another issue, and then we get caught with our pants down because it's like, oh, well, shit, that's kind of the same thing. What it all comes down to is who's got the GDP and where are the #1 places we got to be paying attention to, right?
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So this thing you sent me, though, maybe I'm misremembering this.
Oh, shit.
Did China
on IG? Yeah. Did I send you something on IG?
Did you send me something on, I don't know if it was IG.
The video?
You sent me something. Maybe it was text, IG. I don't know. There were a couple things. The one was like a stream lab that they've set. It looked like straight out of a Black Mirror episode. What was the deal here?
I just sent you that on IG. But so apparently in like China, as I understand it,
you
like,
want to see something that looks like...
Sorry, go ahead.
You know how we have like QVC or whatever in the US? Like we have like, you know, a shopping channel.
Yeah.
All right. So like, well, like their Amazon is like kind of mixed with QVC, right? Where they have this like weird kind of blended, like you go onto this website and it's constantly people using products and like marketing products in these live streams, right? So their commerce is, it's like TikTok meets Amazon basically in China. And they have these giant like labs where it's just like all these like influencers in front of like, you know, like 100 different like mini like screens, right?
A filtered screen effectively too.
Yeah, where they're all just like, look at this new hairbrush, look at this new like makeup, and it's just like a factory of this stuff, and they make like the one dude they were saying made billions from it.
All right, I'm gonna stick this video on the corner. If it ends up having copyrighted music, you're gonna hear a skip, and what I'll do is I'll stick the link to it in the description so you can watch it yourself. But this is an example of what you were just saying.
Yeah, it's wild.
Here we go. All right, let me turn up the volume here. Give me 1 sec. There we go. Boom.
Something that looks like it's right out of Black Mirror. What you just saw is a stream factory in China. Apparently, there are over 700 million e-commerce live streamers in China who make a living from commerce streams on websites like Taobao, which is the Chinese equivalent to Amazon. There are streamers like Austin Lee Jieshi, also known as the Lipstick King, who had a 7-hour live stream where he tried on 380 different lipsticks and sold over $1.9 billion US in product. So obviously this can be very lucrative, although it's not for everybody, but for obvious reasons, it's a very desirable career for a lot of people, which is where these influencer incubators come in. Companies set up to groom, train, and manage potential e-commerce streamers. Some are obviously going to be a lot more professional than others, but seeing as this one looks like it was set up in an abandoned parking lot, well, I'll leave that for you to decide. But because some of these women don't have the money to pay for their own phone, equipment, makeup, and products, they'll go to factories like this where everything they need for is paid by whoever's in charge, and then they'll spend 8 to 14 hours every single day just live streaming different products. That is all for this video, but if stuff like this interests you and you want to see more like it, I'd really appreciate if you click the plus. Thank you.
And they do, I wonder if like they're, to play a little devil's advocate here of like a lot of places are doing something like this. What about like in the US? What fucking show was that in that I'm thinking of where it showed it? You don't see it on the internet when you see this shit in like on like porn sites and stuff. But where these girls will stream and shit of like they'll do like a stream of like them touching themselves and whatever and like people watch it. And I'm not talking OnlyFans. I'm talking like when they're literally sitting in front of a camera, and I can't remember what show showed it, but when you zoom out, there's 50 rooms right there or 50 beds, and all these girls are next to each other doing the same thing. It's not a hell of a lot different than that, and I'm talking about shit that happens in America.
Doesn't surprise me. I mean, if there's money and there's like ways to exploit this shit, like, yeah. What's wild to me is like, so in China, it's clearly popular. Like you go onto like an Amazon website, instead of just seeing products there, you have live streams of people using these products and marketing these products. Shit, like we should jump on that. Like, I mean, seriously, like it's gonna come here, man. Like that's just where it's gonna come. Like, you know, like eventually you're gonna have dudes just like, you know, like some dude trying on lipstick sold 1.9 billion. I don't think we can even fathom like how like
It's absurd.
what's the like revenue for like Revlon or something? Like I wonder what their yearly revenue is. And he did that like a good chunk of that in just 7 hours, right? That's
I
wild.
wonder how much cost the individual products. Let's say he was selling 3 products. I wonder how much they each cost.
How much did he net?
Like, were they $20 a piece? Were they $30 a piece? And then extrapolate that across a 1.4 approximately billion Chinese population. How many people would have had to buy it to get to his 1.9? If you have network effects and you have a huge following,
and then also
it's
if you do one of
unbelievable.
those things like I'll keep the stream going as long as another person buys a product.
Yeah.
Because people do that shit. Like so then you just like keep it going. Like I'll try on another lipstick. Like whatever. I can't even begin to pretend like I understand that culture and like what that is. But all I know is like, look, we're going like down as a society as far as like attention span and just like I need to be immediate, like always fucking like stimulated and satisfied. So like I won't be surprised if in 2 years you log on to Amazon and it's just the same shit.
but they said they're doing that in like an empty parking lot or something.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the same country that in geographics, I forget the exact comparison between the U.S. It's a little bigger than the U.S. for maybe significantly bigger than the U.S. in like square miles or whatever. But either way, 1.4 billion versus 350 million, densely populated. This is the same country that's building fucking cities that are desert towns with no one in them as like an idea because the state has all the money. And then like some of them just never get used and they're like, we'll just knock everything down. I mean, there's some wild shit going on there.
Yeah.
And you got to remember what is it?
They've hacked your phone by now.
I mean, what are they? Dude, I'm worth $8,500. I'm in fucking Jersey. If you're worried about me, I salute. God bless. Do what you got to do. You want to whack me? I'm not worth anything. I got no family yet. Good time to do it. Knock yourself out. Like I don't have time for this bullshit. But there are people who are actually important, unlike me, who I do wonder what kind of security they have because maybe they actually are a threat. You know, to like talking about somebody. If I get a couple videos of 20 million, it's still like a fucking one video, right? It doesn't do much. But guys who have enormous platforms who are talking about this a lot, I wonder what kind of precautions they take. You know, they're not as desperate as I am to look at them. I got people like telling me, like, oh, just do it to do it. I'm like, okay, whatever. But, you know, the power that the reach of cybersecurity has now, cyber lack of security has is nutty. And it's not just Russia, of course. It's as you were starting this off with, China's a concern and shit like that.
I mean, it's the biggest concern, and every pod I feel like I've been on, we talk this. Yeah, China is they're just like obsessed with like undermining the U.S. and undermining like any other country that gets in the way. You know,
you were the guy who alerted me about their official social credit system. When you did that, I had never looked into it, really knew nothing. Now it's a main, people talk about it a lot, in relation to things. But there was another video. This was a while ago. I just saw this when I pulled up the other one because I was going through DMs. You remember this one behind you?
Oh, the cameras,
yeah. All right, I'm going to play. If this has copyrighted music, you're going to hear a bump, and we're not going to play it on the podcast, but I will put the link in the description in that case. Otherwise, it's going to be in the corner. But Jesus Christ.
Dude, so that in and of itself is scary enough, but what scares me is like, and I guess we're going down this road.
Let's do it.
Is the fact that like with digital currencies, so like if the U.S. Treasury dropped a digital currency, or like we just all switched to digital currency, the fact that like, and I'm sure this happens in China, I think they could just like freeze your bank accounts or whatever, but like if you go to an all digital currency that's controlled by the state, then they're just going to stop you from spending that on things that are like, you know what, you are not socially worthy enough to spend your money in this way. You have to spend it here. Like you go to buy like whatever, you buy like, say you're like overweight and you go to buy like a pack of bacon and they're like, like, sorry, you can't buy this. Like there's just like infinite ways that could just go off the rails. And yeah, I mean, the fact that they have 700 million cameras, if this video is true, I don't know the authenticity of this video, and I don't think China's just putting the stats out there.
Please check that out, people. I will check it out myself after, but we're watching it live.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a random like IG thing I saw, but yeah, it's yeah.
Wow. So That actually quite literally, and I'm not somebody, whenever I've watched a Black Mirror episode, I'm very impressed. It's a great show. I've never sat down and like watched the series. What you just said is quite literally a Black Mirror episode, though. I've seen it, where like there's I think it's like a red-haired woman. She keeps on getting turned down because she ripped somebody or something like that. She got mad at someone at an airport. It started that way, and then she wasn't allowed to buy a ticket, and then it affected her everywhere. And you see all these different credit scores popping up around people, so it's kind of scary how accurate that is. But the CBDC's argument is, dude, there was a podcast Rogan did the Saturday before the Ukrainian invasion. That's how I remember when it was. It was with Majid Nawaz. I hope I'm saying that right. That guy is a brilliant dude from the UK. There's a whole backstory with him too, and he speaks very fast, so you may have to listen to some things twice because he's moving at 1,000,000 miles a minute. But that podcast has some of the most important information in it from a publicity perspective you'll ever hear on a podcast, depending on how things turn out here. But he talked all about the CBDCs and what it would allow these governments to do should they defeat things like Bitcoin and the entire crypto space with PSYOPs and stuff like that, right? Because they view the digital world the same way we do in its inevitable move to that. We're already in the midst of it, and they want to get out in front of it. So when you look at things that happen, like the collapse of some of the crypto quote-unquote projects that we saw and some of their collateral that happen to be tied to uncontrollable things like Bitcoin, that hits your head and you go, I wonder what's at play here. Because I've always said this, and believe me, I'm sure I'm parroting 1,000,000 people who say it a different way or perhaps the same exact way. But once a government doesn't control money, what do they control?
You're right, not shit.
So if you're saying that this right here is tied into something like that, I don't know, man. That's a dark potential future and possibility to me.
China ain't going nowhere. We just got to stop them from like taking over Taiwan. Honestly, that's the biggest victory we could practically hope for.
2024, China's going to take Taiwan.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly acting like they're about to.
Yeah.
They're ramping up. They're like doing military exercises right over Taiwan airspace. Like, yeah, and like they're pretty much not like they're pretty much saying that they're actively maintaining that like Taiwan is part of the People's Republic of China.
Scary times, man. Scary times. But I enjoyed this as always, brother. It's great to have you in here when you're in town. We got a great breakdown of the Young Thug case tonight, among other things.
Yeah, man. You got to come out to Miami sometime, bro.
I know. I can't wait.
Get on the boat, bro.
I can't fucking wait. Boats in Miami. I'm in.
Yeah,
there.
We out here, bro.
We'll hit the. What was the rap lyric with the Delano from? Was that a Puff Daddy song?
It was. I just bought the Delano.
That's it.
By P Diddy.
We're gonna get Bungalow 8. We'll be good.
Yeah.
We'll be straight. It's good
I'll
stuff.
show you some better spots, bro.
Listen. There's some other great spots too. I'm just saying that's a good like home station.
Hey,
It's right next to the beach
you got
bar.
your format that works.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they come right in there, they serve you, they get everything loaded like a buffet. You know, there's people coming in and out.
Hey,
no problem.
Hey,
no problem.
Good vibes, man.
Get Nico back down there too. Have a good time.
Yeah, good shit.
We'll do it. All right, brother. Thank you as always. All right, we'll see
sure,
you again
man.
soon. Dab it up. Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to it.